Have a good meeting. You're all set.
Great, thank you. All right, it is February 11th, 2025. All this meeting of the select board to order. Do I have approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Gilmore, seconded by Conley. And since we're going remote, we'll do a roll call and I'll read the statements.
Okay, Mr. Goodrich?
Yes.
Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore?
Aye.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, unanimous, all in favor.
The Scituate Select Board is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there's disagreement, value the participation of our community. We want all participants, including marginalized, minoritized communities, to feel welcome and respected. We ask that our community members and everyone who participates to commit to the standards, to support and respect our community. With that, any walk-ins? Walk-ins are things that are not on the agenda. Seeing none, report of the administrator.
Good evening. So the water treatment plant, we had a meeting with our contractor and our engineers today. The water treatment plant is on schedule and on budget. We are still doing work on the foundations, formwork, rebar, subsurface utilities. Weather dependent, next week we will see the largest concrete pours to date on the north end of the building. But if you drive by, you can see the start of the garage area, which is on the south end. So it is coming along again, most importantly, on time and on budget at this point. We did have a little conversation about them, about the tariffs and impact on the cost of the steel. Because the project is partially under Buy America, the steel is American steel anyway, so hopefully those tariffs will not impact the price. They are rushing to get their order and to make sure that it won't impact the timing of those. More people go to Buy American steel with the tariffs. So right now, we are in good shape. Short side of spring, beach stickers go on sale February 18th at 8:30 a.m. Resident beach and transfer station stickers are available online at the counter on mail-in. Beach stickers are valid from date of purchase to March 31st, 2026, and they are mandatory from Memorial Day until Labor Day. Non-resident and Humrock only beach stickers go online also at 8:30. They are online only. So in person for residents, mail-in for residents, online for residents, non-residents, it is online only. A reminder, non-resident beach stickers are only good Monday through Friday, no weekends and no holidays. Beach stickers and transfer station stickers are non-refundable and non-transferable. Town clerk has announced the annual town election will be held on Saturday, May 31st, 2025. Nomination papers are now available. Anyone who wishes to run, take out nomination papers, they have to contact the town clerk. Candidates need 100 certified signatures of registered voters of the town of Scituate. The deadline for signatures is Friday, April 11th. Our Veterans Officer has reminded people that if you have old and tattered flags, you may dispose of them at a bin at the transfer station. I'll take them to the VFW during normal business hours so they get disposed of in a respectful and correct manner. Spring and summer registration for recreation, online and in person, will open on March 18th at 6 p.m. Sailing and maritime adventure registration will open the following day on March 19th at 6 p.m. Recreation Commission wants to remind you that you should set up your account prior to the time for registration. Make sure you get in. Registration office will be open both nights until 7 o'clock for recreation. The brochures will be posted later on next week for people to take a look at. Town clerk also wants to remind people to please turn in their 2025 annual census, which was mailed to all households. Zoning Board of Appeals will hold their continued public hearing on the accessory dwelling units this Thursday, February 13th at 6:30 p.m. in this room. You can comment in person or comment online. Finally, short one tonight, Scituate Food Pantry continues to see an increase in need. Most needed items: John's spaghetti sauce, rice pilaf, decaf ground and decaf instant coffee, microwave popcorn, low sugar cereal, white tuna, canned sloppy joe sauce, spam, and artificial sweetener. These can be dropped off at the food pantry during business hours, behind the old gates, or at the Village Market, Shaw's, and the Scituate Public Library. That is what I have for today.
Questions?
No, just nice to hear that our elections are going forward and encourage anybody that is at all wanting to get involved in government. This is the time to pull your papers.
Karen, good?
I'm good.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda, we have a new on-premise restaurant annual wine malt license. This is,
So you have to wait,
oh.
so that's 6:45 is public hearing. So you might want to call.
St. Patty's Day.
Sure, we sure do. Well, we got Kelly's here.
He's here.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about beautiful
Talk about
Independence Day
Easter.
parade. Yeah, Easter. Is the mayoral race still going here? It's
It is.
just started.
It
Anyone
is.
can get in? Or are we
Well, no,
set with the
never-
candidates?
Never too late to get in.
Never too late to
Never
get in.
too
All right.
late to get in.
All right.
But currently, we have two candidates. Arlene McClay, she is the co-owner of the Hibernian and the Drift Inn. And Kelly Rogers O'Brien, running from O'Brien's Car Care. Two
All
good
right.
candidates.
They'll raise a lot of money. I know they will.
I hope they do.
Yeah, it'll be fabulous. So tell us what's happening, anything, I'm assuming it doesn't look like there's anything new. Part of me, I've got a filibuster to get 5 more minutes here.
Okay,
But tell us about what's
coming
anything
up?
different, any movement changes for setup? What should we know about the most
well, pretty much
well-run?
Everything will be
Right.
about the same as far as the setup goes. I'm expecting it to be a little bit bigger than last year. We've had a lot of new businesses who have jumped on board.
Oh, good.
Want to get in the parade. Pretty much a lot of the same groups. The reason being is we're in competition with South Boston, and Abington, and Holyoke, and Manchester.
There's no competition.
Well, technically no, but as far as getting other bands to come down here, everyone's pretty much locked in at whatever place they're playing at, and there's just only so many bands to go around.
And are they all on the same date now? Because of are they all on the 16th?
Yes,
Because of the
Everything's
way
the
the date's
16th.
falling?
yeah, everybody does it the closest to the same, actual same
Right,
day.
right.
So that's the reason for that. So like I said, we have pretty much a lot of the same. I do have a new group that I've formed, that I think is gonna be the hit of this year's parade. And maybe
All
for
right.
years to come, I will not divulge any more information other than go to the parade and
Wait a
you'll see.
There's a new hit. How about some hit? Is it gonna
No,
be
no,
music
no.
related?
There'll be nothing, there'll be no giveaways.
So breaking news here.
Breaking news.
Something
Something
huge.
special is gonna, I wouldn't say it's huge, it's gonna be a real hit in the parade.
Something.
Alert the press.
Alert the press.
Alert the press.
That's good. No, that's great. Honestly, every single year it's grown and grown and grown.
Yeah,
And
so I can fill you in, I guess, with upcoming events that we'll be doing to help raise some more money for the parade.
yes.
One will be on February 28th at the Drift Inn, our annual game night. We typically have LCR, whatever you want to call it, and a few other games that we do during the evening. We have some raffles. It's not a huge fundraiser, but it's a fun night to get out, and we do make a little bit on that. The Grand Marshal's dinner, where we select who the mayor will be on the 13th of March, which is a Thursday night, also at the Drift Inn. And our mayor candidates are having their fundraising parties. Kelly's is at the VFW on March 1st, and Arlene's is at March 8th at the Drift Inn. And then we are having a new release of beer from Untold Brewery on March 7th, Friday night from 5 to 9. We will have a pizza truck there. We have Brian Rochick performing. And we'll be having a release of the We Love a Parade IPA. So it's going to be hopefully a big fundraiser. We'll be selling a lot of our merchandise there. For instance, these sweatshirts that we have that I'm wearing, and a few other things, and there'll be some glasses made with our logo on them that the brewery's gonna sell for us, so everybody come on out and help support the parade, have a good time. So those are the big things that's happening.
Same route? Same route,
Yeah, everything's the same, yeah.
for party planning purposes.
But party planning purposes, correct, yeah, so nobody has to know that.
Yes.
Karen, anything, any questions, comments?
No, thanks, Ed, for all your hard work. I just want the board to be aware that a new marching group is the Scituate Bicycle Commission's going to be doing a slow roll through the parade. So thanks for including them, Ed.
You will. Great. And of course, the weather will be perfect. Absolutely. All right. Yeah, I already put my order in. Yeah, looking forward to it. Appreciate all you did. Thank you. And by the way, Andrew, happy birthday.
Thank you, appreciate that, have a.
Have a
Right.
tree.
Well, nothing, we need to start buying candy though.
We do.
We always run out.
Right at the end.
Situation.
Goes from there.
That's because some people throw it on right at the beginning and
Some
don't
people
say
who
it.
are not
They
watching
do.
this year.
It's crazy to tell them, don't throw so much at the beginning, because you'll have nothing left for the people at the end.
All right, I will take, a motion.
Move to approve the special event permit to Ed Kelly for the St. Patrick's Day Parade scheduled for March 16th, 2025, from 12 p.m. until 4 p.m. with setup beginning at 10 a.m. and breakdown at 4 p.m. pending final sign off by police, fire, board of health, and DPW, and the certificate of liability insurance and special events fee.
Mr. Gilmore, seconded by Ms. Harrison. All those in favor by roll call?
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Aye.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Thank you, unanimous on.
Hey, Mark.
Thank you.
Well
That'd
done.
be wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right, WATD, they can't wait to learn all about all the, got some press here.
Yeah, I'm assuming you'll all,
Big news.
I'm assuming you'll all be there watching, right? We will be there. Awesome.
Yes.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right, now it is officially 6:45. I have to wait legally for that time before I have to do that.
We'll go back.
So now we can go back to the first one on our agenda, the all new premise restaurant animal wine malt license for the Salt Marsh Winery. Douglas Rodriguez, come on up. How are you?
Good, how we doing?
Doing
Happy
well.
birthday.
Thank you. Enjoy yourself.
I'm eating candy all day.
I love it.
Red Bull and candy is my diet. But these days.
All right, so we're here, we're gonna talk about wine and malt license. I'd love to hear what you, first of all, question around town, what is going in over, Rivershed? It's been a question, I don't know. So you can just dispel all the rumors and then tell us what.
So the
what
idea
your vision
is, it's a restaurant. I mean, the idea is a coastal restaurant. New England Bistro is what I'm gonna call it, as far as concept. The name will be the Salt Marsh Winery, based off a book that my grandfather had written. He lived behind the boatyard, behind the harbor, kind of by Peggotty, and just a Scituate native and Massachusetts native. He liked the idea of the salt marshes. It was kind of good for mystery novels. One of them was called The Mystery at the Salt Marsh Winery out of 5. So sort of an ode to that concept, is sort of an ode to restaurants of the past that kind of everybody loves. Don't exist anymore. Jamie's Pub, Parker Tavern, PJ's, I mean, you name it. The idea of them were great. People love them for generations, and I think a mashup of those, but a 2025 version needs to happen. Sort of approachable New England type of food, but food trends have changed over the last 30 years. So as far as food and concept, that's where I want to go.
Any more, kind of about your background in the restaurant industry?
I grew up in Scituate.
Yeah.
Both sides of my family grew up in Scituate. Started working in restaurants at 12, 13, Bergson's, Atlantica, Saboritos, Windsor House, Tosca, Cosmos. You know, when you could get a job in a restaurant underage, but moved into the city to start working some more notable chefs and just kind of kept going. So since I was probably 13, 14 in professional kitchen. Worked around Boston for 20 years, traveled a lot. moved back home with my wife. Just before the pandemic. And Jimmy Burke and I, and his wife Joni, we were kind of planning on opening Osteria Vivo in Scituate. You know, obviously we didn't get around to that, the pandemic held a lot up. When we landed in Pembroke, and we opened Osteria Vivo, which I bought from them 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And it's time to two.
Wonderful. So I'll pray for some more questions. Yeah, please go.
Your restaurant in Pembroke is terrific.
Thank you.
It's terrific.
That's a yes, by the way.
Yes, no, it's really, really good.
Thank you.
And, you know, I heard that Jimmy Burke was opening a restaurant a few years ago, and
Yeah.
he's been around and
He's been around.
yeah, so my husband and I went over there, and it was just amazingly good. We really like.
We had a lot of talent on the team opening that restaurant.
I just highly recommend anyone to go over there to the restaurant. It's really good.
Should have brought cars.
Have high hopes for this new one.
Thank
So welcome.
I wish you all the luck. I'm sure it'll be great.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Hear that? Oh. I know Karen's gonna ask about tips. No?
I'll leave that to you because you're in the room and you can give the lecture I love to give. But the only question I really had to do with the permit for outdoor entertainment.
Yeah.
And I just don't recall, did Rivershed have one? That space is
You did.
kind of,
Yes.
Yes.
they did. Okay, I just couldn't remember. That's great. No, we're very excited to welcome you back home. And I just wanted to ask Jim, is this the last of our licenses?
It's seasonal because we don't have any more left. That's why we've asked the governor to file legislation first.
Okay,
So it's a
this
seasonal.
application is seasonal. Okay,
Yep. So the hope is that by the time we get to the end of the seasonal license, we'll have additional liquor licenses that can get regular.
and how many did you request? I forget. I'm sorry.
7.
7. Okay, that's terrific. Okay, and you're comfortable with that seasonal?
Are you asking me?
No,
Yeah.
the applicant.
Yeah, I think if it's the only loophole I have, the beer and malt is under application. And then seasonal, by the time we get open, seasonal, I'm hoping will be into effect, but it's what I'm working with.
Okay, great.
And I'm reading seasonal is April 1st to January 15th.
Yeah, it's a longer season than people
Doesn't
think.
sound like
Yeah.
it, yeah,
It's,
it's a nice season,
It's a nice
April
season.
1st all the way to January 15th. So it's really only, not including half of January, March and March.
It's like a school season.
Yeah, okay.
go to Florida,
Yeah. It's like,
enjoy yourself.
again,
But yeah,
It's
so
a
great,
restaurant season.
hopefully
Right.
before that time, we would have another license. Oh, yes.
as further, we have nothing, we can only play the cards that are dealt.
Correct.
So, any questions? Oh, tip certified, was that gonna, you always asked that, Karen?
Well, and all the paperwork is.
All the paperwork is in
Yeah,
here.
pages upon
Pages and
pages
pages of
of
that, yeah,
paperwork
it's
with
fabulous.
licensure and, licenses.
It's gonna be amazing.
So,
We're excited, everyone's excited. Again, talk to that guy in the back, let people know. Do I have a motion?
Wait, you have to give the lecture, Andrew.
No, I mean, so the lecture is this, you get it better than I do. We take it seriously about, giving out the liquor licenses. We wanna make sure, we've been good, we've had a good run. This doesn't seem like the type of place that a bunch of underage kids are gonna be, jumping to get to. But we just wanna make sure that,
Yeah, we take all
going to high schools,
precautions.
yeah.
My livelihood on the line on a piece of paper is the entire business.
Yeah, it's respected.
Good.
All right.
You're an experienced restaurateur with a good track record as far as we know, so I'm not terribly worried, but it is something the board takes extremely seriously and the community does as well. And you're a townie, so you know that.
Take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, you just have to ask if anybody has.
Oh.
Public hearing, so.
I'm sorry, yes, anyone in the audience? First I'll go online, don't see anyone. Anyone in the audience here? Comments, questions, concerns? See none. So with that, we're good. Thank you.
I'll read it.
So it's long motions.
It's a very long motion. Move to approve a new annual on-premise, section 12 restaurant wine and malt license for KDR Foods LLC DBA, the Salt Marsh Winery located at 17 New Driftway, Scituate, Mass. The total square footage of interior space is 2,550 square feet with an additional 1,040 square foot outdoor patio space for a total square footage of 3,590 square feet. Hours of operation for liquor sales inside and outside are Sundays, 10 a.m. to 12:30 a.m., Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 12:30 a.m., pending ABCC approval. Further move to approve a new seasonal on-premise Section 12 light restaurant all alcohol beverage license for KDR Foods LLC DBA, the Salt Marsh Winery located at 17 New Driftway, Scituate, Mass. The total square footage of interior space is 2,550 square foot with an additional 1,040 square foot of outdoor patio space for a total square footage of 3,590 square feet. Hours of operation for liquor sales inside and outside are Sundays, 10 a.m. to 12:30 a.m., Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. within the seasonal timeframe of April 1st to January 15th, pending ABCC approval. Further move to approve a new common vicular license for KDR Foods LLC DBA, the Salt Marsh Winery, for Sunday, 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 12:30 a.m., pending final approvals for inspections with Board of Health and Building.
Ms. Harrison, do I have a second?
But you have another,
Oh, I have more?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and further move.
Page 2.
Sorry, page 2, and further move to approve a new entertainment license for KDR Foods LLC DBA, the Salt Marsh Winery, indoors, live or recorded music / DJ with the use of amplification, 1 to 4 piece live band with amplified stringers and or musicians, Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., Friday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Outdoors, live or recorded music, DJ, with the use of amplification, 1 to 4 piece live band with amplified singers and or musicians, Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., Friday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Now,
Now we're good.
Second.
Ms. Harrison, second by Ms. Conley. And roll call vote.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
Ms. Harrison.
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore.
Aye.
Ms. Conley.
Yes.
Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Thank you, unanimous, all in favor.
Welcome. You'll know when I get overexcited.
when are we opening?
Oh, yeah.
I'm pumped. I like to sleep more than I have, but when we get open, it'll be good.
Yeah.
What's an estimated?
I'm
Hopefully.
keeping the pressure on, so I'm saying March 1st, but that's because I want everybody to move faster. April 1st is when I get to start paying investors back, so it's great.
Got it.
Let's go.
Perfect. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have a change of manager or on-premise restaurant wine malt for Cosmos Cafe. Taylor Smith, manager.
I don't see him
Here
here.
right now, might want
Right.
to give them a couple
We
minutes.
could go to the library.
Yes.
Yes, we have the library.
Lovely
Come on up.
library.
And a new rule, you have to take a brownie home.
Or pink cookie.
Or a beautiful pink cookie.
Happy birthday, sir.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
Appreciate that. All right, let's talk about what a generous donation, everything. Let's talk about Tony C. and plaque. Yeah.
Yes, so we, through the I'm the president of the Library Foundation, Joseph McNally. And we do a lot of fundraising for the library, receive a lot of donations. Sometimes there's significant rent to do an honorary process with the folks that are donating. In this case, it's the family of Tony Sneed. They have, through their friends and family, raised $2,500 to date and have pledged an additional $10,000 to have a plaque established in her name in the library. It's a staff room area. So we have gone through the process, submitted all the paperwork for that. And we'd just like to do that presentation in honor of getting that approved to the board. Everything else has been approved, the Library Foundation, the Board of Trustees.
Well, that's wonderful.
And maybe you'd like to say a few things about it. Sure.
Or I guess my cheat sheet. Yeah, so I'm really delighted that the staff was really delighted to see these plaques going up in Tony's honor. She was a town employee here in Scituate for over 26 years. She was the library assistant director for that entire time. She worked with Kathy Meeker and myself. She was really instrumental in so many things in the library. Really, her fingerprints are all over it. The local history room, which you may not realize this, but we have so many people who come in to do research on their family's genealogy or the history of the town. Really every day we have people coming in to do research from all across the country, really, but certainly all across New England. And she was really instrumental in setting up that space, making it a findable resource, putting together a lot of different resources for people to see the history of the town in a really easily approachable way. So that is just a lasting legacy for her. During the library's renovation and expansion, it's absolutely critical. She was very much, in the library, helping with the day-to-day operations that I wasn't always able to do, the construction project, and she was a huge help with the construction project. She had a real attention to detail that again, you can see reflected in, I think, the quality of the library. And lastly, she was also really instrumental in helping set up the Old Colony Library Network. So that 26-member library network, she actually cataloged a huge amount of the resources and helped the network sort of set itself up in the very beginning. So not only is she responsible for so much for Scituate's library, but really for all across the South Shore for the Old Colony Library Network. Additionally, she was an incredibly caring, wonderful, considerate colleague and friend. She was a phenomenal daughter, aunt, sister. So we're just really happy to see this honor go to her. And I know her family is going to be really delighted as well.
I mean, so they got so generous, all their catalog, all those different towns to get that. It's unbelievable to me when we open it up.
I would start with
Yeah.
Miss Canfield, since she's been
Oh, that's right.
in the library pushing that over a long time.
So yeah, these hybrid, it's always
Yeah.
Karen.
I'm very sorry I'm not in the room for the meeting, but definitely sorry not to be in the room to personally thank Tony's family for doing this, because I can't think of the plaque description's phenomenal, and we got it in our backup, and to be able to honor an individual who also served our community so deeply is a win-win, and thank you for the foundation for facilitating this naming, and for her family and Jesse for bringing it forward. She was truly a treasure, and she just worked so quietly behind the scenes, but did such yeoman's work. So I'm thrilled.
Thank you. Thank you to your family especially.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the stories.
Yeah, that's put the context together. So, and we're envious of the great, just, all the work that you guys have been doing for the library.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate it.
donations coming in, having to be recognized, honored, to make sure it's really, it's amazing work.
It's a great library.
Take a motion.
Motion, move to accept a donation of $10,000 to the Scituate Library Foundation by Family Representative Brian Sneed for a dedication plaque in honor of Tony Sneed to be placed at the Scituate Public Library in accordance with the library naming policy.
Second,
Yours. There you go. Ms. Canfield, roll call vote.
Mr. Goodrich,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Aye.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell.
yes.
Thank you, unanimous, all in favor.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
We have been here from Cosmos.
We do. Sure, it says it's a page 76, and we're ready in 10 minutes. So it's perfect. You're in, you're here. So come on up. We'll do talk about a change of manager. Cosmos Cafe.
How are you all? Nice to see you.
Yeah. Yeah, so tell us why the change. I know all the documentation is here for us on our end, but kind of
Yeah, so I'm gonna be on premises, 6 to 7 days out of the week. I'll be there, so I'll be, the eyes and ears of everything going on. And Mickey was there for 30 years, and me and my wife Shawn and his daughter are kind of taking the reins, and he's looking to retire. So he was the former manager.
Yeah.
And now he's recently sold his house, and he's looking to move on from the business. That's why we're here trying to change management. That way it's right in front of us.
Sorry, just so everyone knows, but still gonna be Cosmos. We're still moving on with similar.
Yeah, we're gonna try our best to maintain what he established.
Yeah.
That's very important. Keep up with the quality, keep up with the consistency that he's done for a very long time. So that's our number one priority more than anything. We're open to any suggestions, any ideas. If you hear anything in the town, like things aren't the way they used to be or as good as they used to be, we're open to anything. So as long as we're doing our part to keep his legacy going, that's our number one priority.
And I don't think all these years, no complaints or violations or anything. We'd love to keep that streak going. I guess
Absolutely.
It's such a family friendly, wonderful place. That's always, we were talking about it earlier. So, yes, questions, concerns. Karen, go.
I don't have a question or a concern. I think that Cosmos has got a really good track record and understands the core values that we expect with the distribution of alcohol. But I think this board needs to take a moment to recognize that Mickey has been a core memory for so many of the families that have been in Scituate all these years. And, we wish him all the best. I think I'd like to bar him from retiring, but he's done
Us as well, believe me.
but I please let him know how much that he's made an impact on on our community, and such a positive one. So wish him
Absolutely.
speed in retirement.
Yeah, absolutely. I will do. I'm definitely let him know.
I can echo those words. So just to wish him well, and I wish you well.
Thank you.
For your new responsibility.
Appreciate it, Chuck. Thank you.
I wish you well. I see you every week. We'll see you.
Yeah. I didn't know you were on this.
Do I have to excuse myself? They're like every Friday.
You still gonna deliver to the beach?
I'm in, yeah. No,
Hey, these are questions that are
People
important.
want to know.
Yeah, this year, especially to mine, it is
Yeah,
we're
$30
trying to
of-
our biggest obstacle that we're having is the cell phone reception once we get to the beach.
Oh, right.
So now we're trying to dictate a drop off location where if we can, hey, we're gonna be there and set up drop off times opposed to maybe try to get the orders in We'll have drop-off times every half an hour at a specific location. But I'd have to go through, obviously, you guys to make sure that that's, approved to do that. Just because in case, someone doesn't have cell reception, and there's complications that they already paid, now we're issuing refunds, we're wasting food, so we're trying to do it in a synchronized way, so they know, okay, every, 1 o'clock there's a delivery, 1:30 there's a delivery, 2 o'clock. We're trying to do something like that and find a nice meeting spot.
Well, it's a tradition. You can order Cosmos when you're at the beach.
Yeah, we're trying to make it that much easier.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, that's our goal, try to get to the community as much as possible. That's number one priority.
Before I think I know where we're going with the vote, but, my only other ask would be with that, for how things are running in town, if your business, contact us. In my 5 years on the board, I don't think I've received one email from a business owner in North Scituate. Good. Saying, this is not working, this is good, this is bad, so please, it's an open, please, just let us know the good, the bad, the ugly.
Absolutely.
Just email in and say, hey, this would be great if X, Y, Z, or just have the lines of communication and spread the word. Because that whole region, once we get sewer going, everything else, it's gonna be.
Even before that.
Even before that, it's gonna be even busier.
Email.
Yeah, no, there's gonna be so much happening that we just wanna make sure.
So, whatever you're hearing, potential condos, brewery by these are all good things for the area.
More business, more customers. Yeah.
It's bringing in the right people, so perfect.
So if you see something, let us know.
Absolutely.
We'll allow a motion.
Move that the select board approve the application for change of manager to Daniel Smith for Cosmos Cafe located at 333 Gannett Road for the on-premise Section 12 restaurant wine and malt beverage license.
Nice to have Mr. Yeah, seconded by Mr. Gilmore. All those in favor by roll call vote?
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Aye.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Thank you, unanimous, all in favor.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.
Excellent.
And that's great news. Thank you.
Well done.
Excellent.
Hopefully we'll see you in there. Thank you. Take care.
Right. We're on to appointments. We have Mr. Newman here for Public Building Commission. Come on up. How are you? Good. How are you? I've lost my page number, so give me a moment.
I'll be very deep in your.
No, that's all right. Good to go. Public Building Commission. So tell us about yourself. Tell us. There's always a few basic questions we almost know. Why now?
Page 98.
Page 98. Thank you. Why now? Just tell us a little bit kind of about your background and kind of what you're looking forward to. Get your hands dirty with public. I mean, there's two big projects I know that are online, but
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, so James Newman, lived in Scituate a little over 10 years. So quit school for architectural engineering. I've been a professional engineer now a little over 10 years. Been involved in the industry here and worked in Boston for a number of years. Moved over to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers about 4 years ago to work with the federal government, helping to do their design and construction piece. So I've always kind of heard other folks throughout my career, throughout the industry that kind of help in their local towns for using their expertise in building design and construction industry. So I've always considered it. A good friend of mine, Steph Holland, who's on the Public Building Commission, reached out and said, hey, we're looking to fill up board, would you be interested in a position? So I said, absolutely, it's kind of a good opportunity to get involved and just to help out the town. Really enjoyed living in Scituate. It's a great town, so always looking to give back, similar to working for the federal government, just doing civic duty. So that's kind of the background of looking to, like I said, just give back public service and to help out these my expertise right now.
you know, the amazing thing, looking at when folks come forward, again, see it all the time, how like overqualified. I mean, sometimes. Way overqualified. So I mean, it's an honor that you would want us to help. We won't hold against you that you're a wildcat. That's okay, you know. It's, again, this is again for folks at home, the people that step up, and we need more folks like you to do this. A, thank you. B, it's, again, big projects coming up for us to take a look at. It's amazing to have your skill set, your eyes to kind of help us through this. It's amazing. I'll start. Jamie, questions?
I have no questions. Your background speaks well for itself, and you will be a compliment to this commission. No doubt about it.
Thank you.
I agree. Same.
Scanfield, we got a thumbs up over there.
Well, what I don't think that people at home can see is the resume is incredibly impressive. So thank you for volunteering and look forward to, you know, having you make the contributions that you're obviously capable of making. So thank you.
So, yeah, thank you for the consideration.
And as you probably know, for her talking on the pace of some of these committees sometimes are it's a little different than you know, the private sector. So I would ask not to get too frustrated at times. So
That's fair. It's obviously I worked in the private sector for a number of years and moving over to the federal government, so I'm already a little bit pre-trained with, it's a different pace. But I think also what I found is the checks and balances in the private sector kind of went away. Everything is faster, quicker, sooner, and at least in the private government sector, while it feels like there's a lot of belts and suspenders, there's obviously a reason for those, for quality control and everything else. So it's refreshing, but to your point, it takes a little bit of getting used to.
I'll take.
You
Oh,
want to just talk really quick about Toby Burke?
so that
And
so
then you can do all your.
yeah, then we'll I mean,
Is it for the same committee? I don't know.
no, so
Traffic rules.
so the next two things. One, we used to have people wait till the end, but we're not going to do that because you're here and you should leave here on the commission. Because A, we need someone, so there's an open spot. The next person, so we bring, this is for traffic rules and regulations. They're really just switching the two police officers that are on there. That's really the change.
Right.
So and we typically don't for staff. So I'll take.
Move to approve the following individual for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named. James M. Newman to the Public Building Commission. Further move to appoint the following individual for a term of 1 year or until a successor is named. Patrolman Toby Britton to the Traffic Rules and Regulation Committee.
Moved by Ms. Conley, seconded by Ms. Harrison. All those in favor by roll call vote.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
Ms. Harrison.
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore.
Aye.
Ms. Conley.
Yes.
Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Thank you, unanimous.
All right, you're on the committee. There you go.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. All right. That's
Here.
if you will do it, I guess. All right, so next on the agenda, excuse me, the agenda.
He's been waiting.
Yes. Come walk by.
Emergency.
So I know it's really cold sticking in front of the cookies in the prize.
You do it to us all the time.
Here.
Please, if anyone else in the audience, we're waiting at home for someone to come in. If anyone's on
I
there.
don't know if I missed the walk-ins, but the 20-year-old case, like a re-educated the team a little bit regarding Harbor Heights Road in the harbor, as far as how much land is left in the state, and that the homeowners will.
All right, well, let's
So
let's do this, and then we can we can let you do that in a so.
He's coming.
All right. They jump around and I get in trouble and do the wrong thing. And then- Cookies look good, don't they?
I'm not looking at the
Not
cookies.
as good as like that.
I'm not discussing with DPW head burgers, and I didn't get one.
I'm gonna go home and have toast. That's what I told
Well,
them.
let's start with, here he is, sorry.
There he is.
All right, he is. No,
We can be right along.
You didn't move along, yes.
packed agenda, we're trying to.
Just go right through it. I appreciate it very much. I was at, get home a little earlier than I expected. So you have the executive action request from Nancy in front of you, I'm sure. And it's basically, again, as the other requests have been, kind of relooking at our inspectors' salary levels to match us with other towns. Norwell's call-out, emergency call-out rate is typically $100 an hour with a minimum of 2 hours, so that would be $200. This doesn't happen very often, and I think Nancy's discussed that. It only typically happens with our electrical inspectors in case of an emergency building vehicle interaction. Or something like that, and it also typically happens at odd hours, weekends, middle of the night, that sort of thing. So I believe that this rate is very fair. I request you consider favorably.
So just to level set again, folks, and people to understand. So typically, something happens at 2 o'clock in the morning, and our hold rate is, am I right, is that $45?
Typically it was $50, again, and that was generally
Oh, yeah.
times 2 hours, so you ended up with $100.
They're trying to get someone out of
charge.
2 a.m., you can't get anything. And all the other towns, I mean, right, pull somebody out. And all the other towns around there are around, Norwell's 200, other towns are much more.
Well, we increased all the other rates, so this
Yeah.
was like the straggler.
So
And
we-
it's like once a
so we
year,
didn't
except
have
for
this
1
on
year, it
the
was 3 times a year. It's
Yeah.
very infrequent, it's not kind of like less than months.
You went from 32 to 45, so call out being at 50.
Right, it doesn't make any sense now.
It's for an emergency type.
Per inspection, not per hour.
Yeah, it totally makes sense to me as far as what we did.
Karen Canfield. I'll take that as a thumbs up.
I know, I was like, no comment, but I didn't want you to think I didn't think it was a good idea.
Yeah.
We did these before. This is pretty basic again. We're talking 2-3 times a year tops.
The only question I did have, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
was, there were, in the backup data, there was presentation of either 3 or 4 times the regular rate and the recommending 4 times. Is that just based on the comps?
Yes, that was based on my analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Take a motion.
Move to increase the rate for emergency call-out inspections for employee inspectors and emergency outside deputy inspectors, $180 per inspection, effective as of February 11th, 2025.
Moved by Mr. Gilmore, second by Ms. Conley. Roll call vote.
Mr. Goodrich,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison.
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Aye.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Canfield,
Yes,
thank you, unanimous, all in favor.
Excellent.
You get a cookie for this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I won't take a cookie. They're delicious.
Brownies are excellent too. You should have a brownie.
Make one of each.
I haven't had supper yet, though. Take a rain check. Thank you.
We are ahead of schedule,
That's a
so
good thing.
we're gonna go back to, because we have someone who's here for walk-in who would have to wait probably 4 hours.
This for fun.
So yeah, so come on up, just give your name and address for the record, and yeah, let us know what.
Yep. So my name is John Hummacher, 69 Branch Street, number 32, near lifelong resident of Scituate. My child, Anna and Gerald Hummacher, Hazel Ave. We have 9 kids in about big families. There's a paper boy for the White House News and Total News for the Herald and the Globe. From 74 to 78 as apprentice, from 78 to 82 in my own right. I'm here to tell you again, me and my father were here in 2005. That all of the area within the limits of the way from Hazel Ave to Front Street is owned by the original petitioners. The land court certificate 483, and it's William and Sarah A. Davidson. So all this land has not been taxed since they put the paper street in. It has an easement coming from Willow Street or Beaver End up to the middle of behind Allen Street where Morrissey's land is. So it has an easement and the paper street kind of ends, it doesn't go beyond the easement. All of the land that was bought and sold next to on both sides of the road kind of peters out. If you get down to my parents' old house in the Stetsons. So no one owns both sides of the way. So it's a tax issue, it's an ownership issue, it's a wetlands issue, and it's about access. So the Palmer Family Trust sold the house in 2021, and the person that you may know who is a contractor for the town was in a law court for 10 years with people on the other end of Harbor Heights. He won his rights to up and over the land from the harbor only westward, and he put his line in from Hazel Ave through the wetlands for his water source, and he had blocked the access in between 50 and 46 Hazel Ave, like he owns the land, and he does not. All that land next to all my parents' property has never been taxed, and no one owns it except the original people who filed criminal court in 1930. So the people who bought our parents' house knocked it down and built up something new. We're surprised to see his boulders blocking the egress over the easement that everyone should have. But he put stones against our old property line. He blocked out our old paper street that we had permission from the heirs of the Davidsons. So I can tell you there was Harvard University and the American Society of Friends. All this information was in our letter to the town in 2005. And so I'm just educating the town that it needs to be fixed on a wetlands basis and for someone to have his stones, because he doesn't pay taxes on the land that he's blocking from Hazel Ave into the easement, into the wetlands, down into the easement. He has 4 lots on the right side only. He doesn't have any land in the middle from the north side until he gets down to his home house for the end. So that's what we're here about today. So if you want to dig up the land court, I've been communicating with the assessor for at least this last May about all the paperwork. So I gave him all the letters, I gave him some maps. So it's all, if you want to follow the history for the land court certificate 483, it's self-evident on a map basis.
Yeah, that's like a curveball for me, right? And I mean, this is
right
news to me. I didn't even live in town in 2005, so I'll give you some background.
So all the land from Front Street up until the stone wall behind my parents' house was from the Anson Otis estate. And everything from the stone wall to the town brook were made by 2 farms. The White Farm for Frank Clapp and the Brooklyn Spot Farm was everything that you know as the tree streets from Elliot's Ice House, the stone wall behind Poplar, the stone wall behind that runs from Allen Street to Beaver Road City.
Well, I have a lot to
Well,
look into.
not to jump in, but this is a walk-in.
Yeah.
We can't talk about it.
I know.
We can't even
Right, so
say anything.
I've been working with your assessor already,
Yes,
so
yes.
my brother's been in the
Yes.
hospital for 35 of the last 30 days. I didn't have time to prepare and get to the board again.
Yeah.
But the board has had it since 2005. The selectmen, then board, the building inspector, the building commission, it's all in the solar. So you want to go get your own copy across the building commission, it's there from 2005. We do that.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
A lot of information. I do. It's great.
I try to be as concise as possible as I could.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
No problem.
This is wonderful.
Thank you.
When you live in an old town like we do, these things.
Yes, when you deliver the paper for 10% of the population on a at-home basis for all of them that did, we got the stories. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it, thank you. Yeah, next.
Thank you.
Oh, sure, there we are. Mr. Hickey, come on up.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing quite well.
Been a good couple of weeks for you?
Indeed. Okay. So thanks again for having us, Jack. Jack serves as our chair of school committee currently, and we're always grateful that we'd like to hear a little bit more about what we're up to. Obviously, I want to start by thanking you for your support as a board for our project, and we're grateful for the outcome and ready for what comes next. So my presentation tonight is similar to what you've seen in the past. With Seth's help, I'll move at a reasonable pace and get to some of the money slides. Let's figure out what we're doing, hoping to do for fiscal 26. And then if time permits, I could talk to you a little bit about, and at least maybe open the conversation for you all to talk about the next steps with regard to debt share and what each community needs to look at. So for fiscal 26, the presentation starts off with a few slides regarding where we're hoping to go, the overall sections, goals and accomplishments and whatnot. Next slide, Seth. Thank you. So highest enrollment student in school history. Very happy about that. The demand is obvious. Strong co-op program. You've heard a lot of this before. Over 400 applications for a currently sized freshman class of 180. We've welcomed our ninth grade class from Marshfield as our newest member town. Get to brag about having national medalists for Skills USA and Future Farmers of America from our horticulture landscape program. Our manufacturing shop recently won a Project Green Schools Award. We received one of the largest state grants for CTI, which is a career technical institute. You've heard me talk about adult ed workforce development after hours. And we've been thrilled to work with our area fire chiefs for an after-school fire cadet program that's open to students from anywhere, not just our school, as they struggle with finding a pipeline of folks interested to pursue these careers. It gives high school age students an opportunity to see what it's all about. And as you know from previous meetings, we recently revised our regional agreement where we made adjustments to the debt share form. Thanks, Seth. The next couple of slides, just our reminder of how much we value partnerships with our community. And we can skip those other towns. We should have started with S. There we go. And so we're grateful because every project, there's a mutual return on investment, and we take it as a win because it gives our kids an opportunity to be able to point to something in each of our communities saying, for the rest of their lives, I did that, I built that, I fixed that. And I know how much our communities appreciate this. So it's an ongoing invitation as Scituate and other communities look to find cost-effective ways of repairing things, find ideas. I think I got an application recently about some of our shops doing work at the Mordecai Lincoln property. So there's another potential opportunity for us to be able to get real-world opportunity and for one of our community members, communities to benefit. Thanks, Seth. Yeah, so looking ahead, we have a NEASC accreditation in 2026. Like all school districts, we're talking about what's the world look like post-MCAS with competency determination. Hopefully we'll see the pendulum swing away from the standardized tests to more authentic assessments, which I think is in our wheelhouse. So we're generally pleased with that. Like everyone else, we're looking to make kids allergic to cell phones and hopefully developing some community service expectations and continued partnerships with shop projects. And our professional development this year has been focused with our shop teachers and academic teachers around where does AI fit in to the vocational technical curriculum. We've got some good feedback from staff about how that's been doing, which I assume they've written the feedback on their own and didn't have someone else chat GBT writer. So the census the humans like it. Next slide, please. Every year I tell you that we build our budget from zero. We have obviously contractual obligations, but once again, my first budget that I would have brought to you would have been in fiscal 13. And the messaging is essentially, if we all work together and you zero out the discretionary parts of your budget, build the rationale again from zero. It allows me to be able to move capital dollars around so I never have to come and say, I need 5 really expensive things in one fiscal year. It seems to be working. Grants always help. Equipment grants have been very helpful, but we continue to lean on our shops to help extend the life of whatever system or asset we have. And so this process continues this year as well. Although I will say, I think we'll ease up on only absolutely necessary, functional health and safety issues to the building for obvious reasons as we look ahead 3 more years. Next slide, please. Okay, here's the one we can slow down on. Here's where all the numbers are. I'm projecting an overall budget increase of 4.44%. That includes, we always bring you a number that's operating in capital. That's just how we deliver the number. Sometimes I've pulled out the capital if it's been a big number, but a little sliver of that, maybe a little less than 1% is capital. I'm also showing debt service on here just as this inaugural year of saying, okay, we got that project passed, there is going to be some debt service. It does get called out in the paperwork that we give you. There's a debt service line. The highlights I can point to on the revenue side, not great in terms of Chapter 78. I mean, up 19 students and only seeing just a slight increase. We generally will build it assuming level funded. We wait for the governor's numbers, so that's modest. Where we saw in the governor's budget, and this is promising, and we're going to go with this number, a significant increase to regional transportation, which has hovered around 80%. So when you see the line in any of our documents that says the transportation assessment, we back out 80% of it. This reflects our ability to back out about 90%. So we think it's going to be somewhere between 80 and 90. If we're wrong and it's a little bit lower, we have to absorb the difference. But we're front loading the potential reimbursement. So I think that's helpful. I'm also recommending to the school committee that for this first year of debt service that you see up above in green, it's not a large amount in the scheme of things, but we have stabilization fund money that we did not spend as a result of the MSBA reimbursement. And so it's not going to impact future bond rating. So we're going to put into this budget a revenue source from stabilization. So essentially the modest uptick in a town's assessment for debt service we'll wash it out with some revenue from stabilization. That's not 315 grand for Scituate. That's the aggregate interest amount on what we're projecting during the design development phase. The cost increases, you could take out our name and probably insert every other municipality and school district around that says Plymouth County Retirement Assessment, boom, health insurance, and transportation. Little slight difference with transportation for us is with a growing school and expanding enrollment, we'll see an uptick in an additional bus route or some additional late runs. Transportation is one of those areas where nobody has a real solution. Bus drivers are hard to find. But for me, the ability, we've in the past, when circumstances have allowed, we're always in the market to partner with an intermunicipal agreement. So Scituate and Cohasset are 2 of our communities who employ their own drivers, own their own buses, or lease their own buses. And so it provides some flexibility that if there ever was an opportunity for partnership. We started a partnership in Cohasset earlier this year where they had some spare drivers. We're short drivers, but we have buses. And so we're using some of their spare drivers. And they're also paying an accelerated rate to have a third party transport their sports teams around. And so when no one's making money off of anybody, we're just swapping resources. I've got drivers who could use extra hours. I've got some buses, but it's during the day that I'm short some drivers occasionally. So for the last few months, there's been a modest cost savings for Cohasset, and it has allowed me to pay the market rate for a driver. If I don't have drivers, I'm paying our custodial staff time and a half. All of our custodians are also licensed drivers. So it's a small matter, but sometimes efficiencies come from a series of small strategic partnerships. So anyway, so transportation is a cost spike.
Capital is, I've reduced the capital line. Our capital focus for the next several years is literally just about vehicles. Replacing the shop vans and trailers that you see around, but also making sure that we have a sustainable number of dollars to be able to replace either lease purchase school buses. In a perfect world, I'll be able to bring that capital number back, hopefully in fiscal 27 or beyond. But I certainly, we did a very close look at our bus capital replacement matrix. We can push it out another couple of years. So that was a logical place to say, I don't need as much as last year. That capital at 90,000 is for vehicles. So the capital line was reduced. On the personnel side, last several years, I've come to you with some adjustments as I try to move personnel from grants onto the budget incrementally. So I've had an electrical and horticulture teacher on a federal Perkins grant. I continue to try to move them incrementally. My goal is ultimately to be able to, if I can have this Perkins grant is a vocational grant you can use for equipment and supplies and personnel professional development. My goal would be that by the time we're at the point of having to bring on staff for our new veterinary science program, that will be the priority. If I can hire that first veterinary science teacher with this Perkins grant, so if I just scale up the shift from grants to budget, that will open up some capacity. Moving some of an English learner special ed teacher onto the budget, that's going to give me a little capacity because I anticipate, as our English learner numbers are increasing, a need for some additional para support there. So it's opening up some grant capacity for what it's likely going to be an somewhat anticipated need. And our Medicaid receipts have been down. We've historically been able to fund a special ed team chair on an outside source. I'm not seeing those receipts as robust. And so part of the plan here is to move some dollars over. So essentially, if I had to reduce this budget, I would reduce it in two places. I would lower the capital and kick the can. And in these areas you see here, those 4 bullets, those are areas that there is some, even with all the talk of federal grants and what's going on there, I would still like to move them incrementally. But in any event, if I were asked the question, if you had to make cuts, where would you go? Those are the 2 places that I would essentially go and try to revisit the shift onto the budget. If we can pull this off, it'll be great.
Just a quick question.
Of course,
sure. How many of your teachers are on grants? Like what percentage? Because if I'm understanding this correctly, you're moving some of them off, but there'd still be some on, right?
That's correct. So right now we have, I'm trying to think, I'm going to go down the list. This English learner special ed teacher is on a Title I grant. Maybe it's 70% grant, and now I'm looking to shift that.
Okay.
Those 2 vocational teachers are on the Perkins grant. I don't have any teachers on the IDEA 240 grant, but I have several Karens.
Okay.
So that's, I'd say the largest subgroup of employees that are on grants would be IDEA Karens. Yeah, exactly. I do have a culinary arts aide also on that Perkins grant, and with the increased demands in the program, looking to increase that. So that's not going to have a budgetary impact, but I want to note that we see that as a need. And then the last line you've heard me say for many years, that when we build our budget, we bring you a number and we calculate per pupil cost. We have costs that are baked in to our part of the budget, but you've heard that before. This is the busiest slide. Any other questions I could answer here for you? No? Okay, thank you. Seth, thanks. This slide on grants just tries to give you a more detailed perspective of the green line is, big bag of money for night school programs. We're running programs right now, places hopping every night. And then the yellow line below is, these are the grant amounts we get for these various grants. I'm assuming level funded whenever we're building it. But again, those certainly can adjust. We haven't been caught flat-footed yet. Hopefully that will remain in the future, but it's unsettled right now. Next slide, please. Enrollment slides. The green represents in-district enrollment, and that kind of bell curve in gold, yellow there, those were non-resident numbers. So these numbers are trending with what I had explained to you before. We have a handful of non-resident students. You can apply outside the district if there's space in grade 10 and above. maybe a kid moves from in-district to out-of-district and they reapply as a non-resident, but that's what that 6 means at the bottom of the far right column. Next slide. Pick your favorite row, do the eye test, and you can see across, so Scituate's up 4 students from 54 to 58. There has continued to be a steady increase. This is, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but just for the sake of forecasting, because Scituate's assessment so often ties to a approximate per pupil cost, like if you're up 4 kids and you're around 18, 19 grand a kid, it seems to be playing out that way, even though the math, the formula is much more complicated. I can tell you that we're going to, this year's senior class from Scituate is I'll say it this way, the last small class. We're graduating 10 seniors. We have, by last count, 32 applications for the incoming freshman class, 21 apportioned seats. So I would expect that this increase a year from now could be 10 or 11, just based on what we know now. Families will make decisions, but in terms of trend line, I would want to suggest that this modest increase for at least one more year. I could always forecast a year out just based on looking at application numbers and allotted seats. So, but we'll see. We'll see.
Did you say we have 10 seniors now? So you started out with 30 and now there's 10. Am I reading those numbers right? 2021.
Actually, so that's the aggregate number.
Oh, that's the aggregate of all 4. So
what that probably means is we had a smaller
Did
freshman.
you have a smaller freshman?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just looking at the graduating seniors and the incoming freshmen. Oh,
Yep.
sorry about that, Seth. Didn't mean to throw you off. You're following my rhythm there. Next slide, please. Yep. Another document we typically provide to go into the weeds is how do we come up with the assessment number? You've heard me talk about this before. The biggest part of the number is, of course, the minimum local contribution. That's the state formula. That's what we all wait for the governor's numbers to drop so we can get a sense of where's the state aid, what's the minimum. We assess for capital, it's baked into the number, it's a three-year look back. The other operating costs are based on the most recent October 1 report, transpo and other operating costs. And recently revised line for debt service, as you've heard me talk about now. As we move forward with this project, we have a 3-year look back for fiscal 26, and then we start that 4-year rolling average. And Marshall was on a separate formula for the next several years. But all of those numbers are unpacked in a separate assessment document for you. Thank you. And now on this slide, you can, if you want to start at the right, the budget increase for Scituate is $79,830. And this chart, which I've updated the last few years, especially to try to just get a flavor. It's not an art, it's not a science, but it's okay, if the enrollment's going up, is the assessment trending with it? And in the last several years, I would say that although there are a lot of other factors involved, I would say that for Scituate, it has. So if you look at the enrollment percentage increase line, and then you look at the assessment increase line, it generally boils down to more kids, larger assessment. And then there have been years that Jack and I have come, it's either ticker tape parade or rotten fruit being thrown, but so some years the numbers have dropped and the assessment has gone with it. But in this case, we see a more modest, relatively speaking, more modest increase with a more modest increase in enrollment.
And the cost per student.
Yeah, the cost per student, people do that, people like asking that. I find that number to be, it's a number that gets calculated by simple division at the end. I don't know if that's revealing or not, because it's with a modest budget increase and a large increase in enrollment, the per pupil cost could drop. So that's not necessarily a reflection of good budgeting or anything else, but people do like to see an apples to apples comparison when they see what the per pupil cost is from other towns and for other comparisons. But yeah, so it's been hovering. Thanks, Seth. And this is last slide here. We have our February meeting tomorrow night. We'll have a public hearing, and the school committee certifies the budget, which simply means it sets the ceiling. And then as the budget process moves forward, the number could go down, but it could not go up. We have to certify a budget 45 days before our earliest town meeting. And then we have our late winter roadshow and then our town meetings to lead us into the spring. Any other questions I could answer for you on the budget itself?
Get into, well, I'll open it up first. And we're in uncharted territory, you know, I mean, it's like, with the new school being built, what's the impact for how many students and I'll sound, people think I'm silly, but even with AI, there's gonna be certain industries, if you're smart, a kid's gonna say, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm gonna go learn a trade, because that's not even gonna be here anymore. So, yeah, this is unique times, to say the least, as we go forward. So it's fascinating to see where we're gonna go, especially with the new school years down the road, so.
You have the capacity, that's the great part about building for additional capacity. The pacing is, as I've said in many forums, we cannot outpace our town's ability to grow our operating budget, period. And so for our most ardent proponents who would want the building filled the day after the ribbon cutting, it simply is not realistic. But we will have the bones of the building to do so when circumstances allow.
I'm sorry.
I don't have an app.
No question. Karen,
I know it's apples to oranges, but our school superintendent will be next, but what does the cost per pupil compare to a standard high school format or Situate's format? Because I know somebody's going to ask us that question. If it's, 18,000 per student at VOTEC, what is it for Scituate High?
Mr. Chair, I could offer just a partial answer for Karen, not to quote any Scituate numbers, certainly, they'll speak to that. But within the foundation budget, when the state is building a foundation budget for a vocational student, the state, if you were to pull up the chapter 70 pages, you would see about at least a $5,400 per student difference. So when they're calculating what they expect, if you were a net school spending, not a penny above net school spending, the expectation would be that the state would expect to spend about $5,400 more on a vocational student versus a traditional high school student. That's been baked in. I mean, it's risen with inflation over the last 30 years since the start of ed reform. But Karen, that's probably the best I can do just in terms of the structurally, there is an expectation that there is a difference per pupil. The capital part throws people off too because there's capital baked in, but you could figure out apples to apples, certainly, operating to operating.
I vaguely remembered that, but I thank you that's exactly what I wanted to be reminded of. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership on all this. I have to say that it's, it's always been very easy to just support your work because it's always demonstrated such great results. So
thank you.
For the new building.
Well, let's get into I don't know, Nancy, if you want to chime in here or Tom, if you want to take the lead on kind of the funding for our share, the school building project, things you've seen, options. I'll let you go first, and then
Nancy can clean up my mistakes. Absolutely, yeah. Better to handle it that way. So when we were presenting the project and looking at prospective costs for average assessed homes, I was labeling it as there's a level principal approach to paying down debt, and there's a level debt payment approach. One is more aggressive and expensive up front, and there's less interest over time. So based on several projections that we had been making throughout the project, when we were pitching the project, we were using certain bond anticipation note rates. So I was saying at various meetings, we'll short-term borrow for fiscal 26, 27, and 28, and very likely bond in 29 and top it off in 30, or we could bond in 30 and top it off in 31 with the project closing. The messaging, the consistent messaging that the committee and I would want to deliver is that we don't make a decision on the borrowing model until, again, this is how it's been explained to you. You don't make that decision now, but that we would not do it in a vacuum, because ultimately we're taking this approach and then divvying up the assessments and giving it back to the towns. So let's hear what the town financial experts have to say when the time comes. But we at least try to create some bookends. So in the aggregate, when we were talking about the project, my focus was on average household impact. But I'll just rattle off some aggregate numbers. So if all of our assumptions held true, and I'm calling out a Scituate enrollment share in fiscal 30 of about 8.7%. For perspective, the share is a little lower now, about 6.5. So I am projecting that the 20-something seats a year that Scituate would be apportioned in our current size school, I'm projecting that those are going to be filled. I see if we didn't have a new building and trends continue, Scituate would eventually have about 80 kids in the building. So I'm not using lowball numbers when I'm throwing these numbers out at you, because enrollment does influence debt share. So from the first year, fiscal 26, it's about $19,000. That's a sliver of that 315 grand I mentioned earlier out of stabilization. In fiscal 27, we think that it would be about $47,000 in the aggregate for Scituate. And in fiscal 28, that number would jump up to about $248,000. So that's 3 years, short-term interest only payments, Scituate's share, 19 and change, 47, 248. When you hit fiscal 29, and let's assume a more aggressive bonding approach, between the two models, if we did the more aggressive level principal, in the aggregate, we're looking at about 950 grand. And if we were doing level debt payments, again, with all those other assumptions, it's about 700, yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, yeah, it's about 750 grand. So again, basically, if you start with level principal, the number is higher, and then somewhere in the 2040s, that number rolls off until it reaches approximately the level debt share, and then everybody watches it drop from 2040 something to 2058. When it all boils down, all the principal and all the interest with all the assumptions has somewhere between 22 to 23.3 million. Ultimately now, for all of our communities, the question is, how does one fund this? I live in the district. I know how my town's going to need to fund this. But it's ultimately an action of the select board and the town as to where does one find this debt service. And most commonly in these types of projects, it's eventually a debt exclusion question. Captain Obvious here, sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first one is the enrollment, right? So we're saying, your projection is in the future 80 total, and then using the.
I'm using 8.7%. So I'm suggesting that based on the numbers rolling off and numbers rolling on. Yeah. So if I'm wrong, if it's lower, then those numbers are low. But it's gonna flex.
Is that? I mean, I guess that's my first question to the board. I'm trying to look at the future here, right? I mean, does that seem reasonable? Because you're trying to make these. You think about this from a 10,000 foot level. Trying to bring
Scituate and Hanover have added themselves to the camp of towns that are using all their seats. And I don't predict that that's going to change, which means I'm only left with 2 communities who have historically had unused seats to then be reapportioned. So I see the number of seats beyond the initial allotment dwindling. So this variance of, we have 20, we have 40. If a town is being allotted 20, 21 seats, and it varies with each 8th grade class, but not a lot. I've looked at K to 8 enrollments as of 10/1/24, and when I look at all of our towns, with only a few exceptions, the rough 8th grade share is staying the same. So whether it's a freshman class of 180 or freshman class of 200, the percentage share seems stable. But the other point, Mr. Chair, that I picked up, and this is where Jim and Nancy can speak to it better, is that the idea of being able to nail a specific number, our bond counsel says that the debt exclusion language is, do you agree to exclude the debt of the town's share of the debt, as opposed to, do we have to pinpoint a number and then get it wrong? So I felt it felt a little vague, but then I got it, like, well, okay, I guess that makes sense. Because you're asking, do you want them to fit this under the levy limit, or do you want them to exclude the share as shares adjust over a 30-year period? So that was the other thing I picked up along the way.
We can't predict it now.
Yeah, no, I-
3 years, but I'll give you another number, 96%. I mean, that 96% of the people in the town voted for this, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
People that voted, and we have the highest percent, I do wanna say
I
that.
think that 96% of the people that agree
Yeah,
today's Tuesday.
Yeah, so,
Well, also,
I mean,
a brand
there
new
are options,
facility
there are
will, by definition, attract more kids. I mean,
correct.
I wouldn't imagine.
The new car smell is going to have,
Yeah, it's
we've
gonna be
seen it
very
in the,
attractive.
we've seen it in the reverse. We've seen
Right.
it when a new high school opens up. We'll see a dip in enrollment.
Yeah,
We'll see
right.
that for several years.
Yeah,
It's not a, it's a reasonable assumption in the reverse here.
Well, and I think if you look at any school district such as Scituate, for example, for us to try to replicate on a town by town basis the types of programs you offer, be virtually impossible. And what you would wind up with was you'd need more shop facilities, et cetera, which would add to your cost per student to the town. So I personally wish we would do more regional cooperation, honestly, because we could share costs. And I won't mention any other places where regional projects would be a good idea. But this is, this has worked for a long time, and I only see more success in the future.
Yeah, I think it's good information to know,
Yeah.
but I mean.
Yeah.
Things could change in a couple of years with rates and whatever,
Who knows?
when the time comes.
Nancy, if you wanna,
Just a couple of points. First, as Susan pointed out, 96% of the people just voted at this election. So I think if the debt exclusion is how this is going to have to play, which is most likely how it's going to have to play because we can't afford to pick up $1 million worth of debt service into our budget. It should happen right after that vote. Because it's still fresh in people's minds as to what we're talking about. Even though the debt, I just ran the numbers real quick, on the short-term debt that Superintendent Hickey was mentioning, the first year impact might be $2. Second year impact, we're talking $5. Third year impact, $29. Then you get to the bigger impact, which was the range of 92 to 120, which is what we put out in the information. And that's gonna change. Well, there'll be a different total valuation, there'll be a different percentage rate, but that's a ballpark. I think all the information is available to people right now. So if it's going to have to be a debt exclusion, which I don't see any way around it, it should happen at the next available election, which would be the April one.
This April?
April 14th.
and how, right?
No, sorry, May
May is the
31st.
election, yeah.
Everything,
I read
Town
May
meeting, yeah.
green.
It's like. It's the date.
May 31st.
So if I may, so are you suggesting that for the next, in the May election, that we include an override language without a number?
Debt exclusions never have numbers in it.
Well, I'm sorry.
So it would be a debt exclusion.
Override versus an operational override. So we wouldn't have to include a number, but we could authorize it as a town.
The language that bond council has provided is Scituate's proportionate share of the debt.
It's in here, right?
So it's not like an overwhelming debt, it's only a proportional share.
Right.
And at the town meeting prior to this, there was an article to
Page 126.
rescind the 18 million that was authorized several years ago for the social project. And to me,
I agree with Nancy.
it's never gonna be able to be fit within the levy, it's just too expensive. So just having the vote done, when people remember what was going on, that's fine, because if you do it 3 or 4 years down the line, I don't know what's 3 or 4 years down the line, people's
financial situations are gonna be. If it fails, it's gonna destroy the budget.
Guys, Superintendent Hickey, one question.
Sure.
Municipal Empowerment Act, the governor filed,
40 years to borrow for school buildings.
40 years.
I noticed that too.
is that on your radar screen, or?
Because this is the second filing of it. It was certainly on our radar the first time, and we're trying to find out more information. And I don't know enough about the language to know whether that's, if we bond something and then it takes another legislative cycle to do this, but I definitely want to find out more for obvious reasons, and then let our communities weigh in on the stretching out the project, lowering the cost, adding some interest, but the whole point of the governor filing that a second time was these buildings are supposed to be 50 to 60 year investments. And why put a borrowing ceiling of 30 if a bunch of little towns are finding it a croaker to get their way to say yes, never mind just a single municipality funding a big project as well. So I'm definitely dialed into that as a potential.
So she filed it again, why didn't it go anywhere the first time?
I talked to one of our legislators, it just didn't get any traction. I think it contains so many, if you look at a summary of this bill, there are like 20 bullet points, and this is just one of them. So I would certainly be asking our legislators to take a look at, it's like, if you can't give us more reimbursement for vocational schools, if you can't use some of that millionaire's tax to say, hey, juice up some of these reimbursement rates for K-12 projects, woke tech projects, and at the very least, give us a little relief locally to spread out the debt, or let's at least be able to analyze the impact and make an educated decision on the pro and con of that.
Because you know I have a spreadsheet open right now, right?
About 40 year, what a 40 year would look
Yeah,
like?
so a 30 year, 3.75 is 9.8 million. And a 40 year at 4% is 14.5 million, that's the interest. It's like a $5 million difference in interest. And it only cuts the impact to the average taxpayer from $95 to $85 on level debt service.
So there's good information, yeah.
So it sounds like it's good, but is the savings enough? When you hear the interest figure, it kind of curdles you, you're like,
We'll have spaceships, no school buses, we'll save money.
But I mean, if you should break them, or you can always pay it back.
So we're,
Sure. Karen, you good before we open it up?
So really, the questions to the board is how do you want to finance it, when do you want to put the finance for the bonus?
I like the idea of the sooner the better, riding on the momentum of the fabulous work that this town.
I did query the other 8 towns. Rockland, as you know, did both questions, so they've already done it. They passed both.
Right, they had a debt exclusion on the ballot.
Abington voted last night to have a question this year. Hanover seems to be looking for next year. We couldn't really tell. Marshfield hasn't taken it up yet. Norwell is potentially having 2 override questions this year, general override and the VOTEC override. And then the other 3 towns I didn't hear from. Whereas it would have been his, I didn't hear back from them, so.
I think sooner.
Sooner.
My instinct is sooner.
But we're not looking for anything, I mean, we're good in terms of our school budget and our town budget
This year.
this year.
This year.
Always the caveat this year, because you hear a lot of talk around some of the other towns about Hingham, Cohasset.
Well, we're doing a good thing with our health insurance, making changes to our health insurance to save substantial increases in our health insurance. Can't go into too much detail, but we are taking those steps. Meyer announced 9.9 to 18.9 for the range for health insurance. The trend in the industry is 10% a year for the foreseeable future for health insurance, 12 to 13 for drugs, prescription drugs. We get a big ramp up this year on our pension number. So our fixed costs took big jumps. If you're health insurance is going up 14%, there's no, that's more than you're bringing in taxes. So if those numbers continue, growth is down, expenses are up. We can't sustain this. We will be in a situation next year. Things continue that we will not be able to provide the budget that we're currently providing with the available revenue. So next year, it could definitely be a general override. I won't speak for the schools, they're here, but they're facing the same pressures we are. Just costs are up all across the board, and it's the price of eggs, right? So, this year, we are not proposing an override, this year's budget, you have it, it's balanced. Not the best budget in the world, some reductions in the budget, but, given the trends, we can't keep doing that. So I would say next year, if I had a crystal ball, I'd say next year you'll be putting a general override on the voters. How much? I don't know at this point.
All the more reason life will keep you down.
I agree.
Well, look at Christopher, and then we gotta talk about that, 'cause I don't know.
I understand the strategy of doing it now. But I think from a planning side, you've got to consider what we have coming up in the future. And tonight's thoughts in the shower were, is it possible
We don't need another. Not the picture we don't need.
Is it possible, if we're aiming for an override, is it possible to make an override big enough where we can absorb this for a few more years within the budget? And then we're gonna have another project that's gonna need another debt exclusion. Whether it's a town hall, the gate school, or fields or whatever, something, the highway market, I think is one of the next big projects to come out. Would it be better to try and absorb this within the budget, even with an override, for a little while, and we get to our next smaller debt exclusion project that we could bundle this in with? I think we're running out of good graces, we're running out of, hey, we need another override, hey, we need another debt exclusion, hey, we need another one, is there a way we can do that?
In response to Chris's point, which is well taken, my only concern when we've talked about this before is the variable nature of this debt. The debt service is it's not locked in once they issue the debt, it is a 4-year rolling average. So if our enrollment tanks, then our debt service changes. So as a debt exclusion, that means people's debt exclusion goes down on their taxes. If it's built into an operational override, if you peg it at $1 million and it only comes in at 700,000, yay for Jim and I, but not yay for the taxpayer.
So again, there's two things that worry me. I mean, I do think we're running out of, I think we're actually already there. I think tomorrow, this is gonna be the next trailer. We're talking about 2 new overrides the next 2 years. What's going on? I'm afraid that we're gonna get one bite of the apple, and one of these two may not pass. So that's only my concern, is that how do we make sure? I mean, this has to get done, and these are not nice to haves. These are we need to haves, and because of the last few projects, I don't think the political will is there. And we've asked a lot, so it's the time.
Well, but I also, the other ones that you mentioned, the new town hall, that's not even in my mind. That is an absolute hard no. And there's no way, any scenario, I would put that above a school.
Right, yeah.
Like, in
no,
my
this is
mind, it's like,
operational.
get in line.
To
and you
Chris's
gotta-
point,
it's
there's
a
no
long
way to
line.
kind of do this for a little bit, then try to wrap it into another one.
Yeah.
This is a bill that's here that we have to pay one way or the other.
Right.
But the momentum in the vote indicates that the town is in favor of doing this.
Yeah. Right.
And I think the sooner you maintain that energy level, the greater success you'll have with passing this. And to lump it to something else is pure speculation. And you're almost like bringing this down, thinking that the other might bring it down. So
Could do it as part of an operational override, but it would have to have a number attached to it. So if we said, we looked at all the numbers, it's gonna cost us $800,000. We set it $800,000, we're good. If our enrollment drops, then that number goes down. We have that money then to use for other places. If enrollment goes up, things like that. So that would be good. However, if our enrollment spikes and now our portion of the debt jumps, you don't have enough to cover it because it's a set number as opposed to debt exclusion, which is just whatever the cost is, that gets added up. So those are the pros and cons of doing it. If you did it as part of a general override, if that number goes down and our enrollment goes up, then you have a little cushion there to meet that. But if you set the number wrong, you're either asking too much or you're not getting it.
Again,
I like the scenario where the most.
yeah, I mean, again, I'm throwing out just people to really think about, because
Been down
if
Well, in my experience, an operational override, which we don't do a lot in this town, not traditionally done a lot of that, is a story for another day. And that usually becomes a matter of how many firefighters you're gonna have to lay off, how many teachers you're gonna have to. It usually comes down to that sort of story, an operational override, whereas the debt exclusion is a different story. So, but, and I think I'm hearing from this board that to get this second piece done, over with, and on to the next is better than having to go in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and I don't want anything else to jump the line.
No.
Like, this is the next one.
Correct.
Nothing else is jumping the line, even if they get on, like, try to get on the same thing, nothing else should jump the line.
Right.
In my opinion.
I'm with you.
Okay. I am too.
I don't want anything else to jump the line. I just want people to know that there will be an operational override next year.
Well, and that's up to the.
So I just like to think about that.
Oh,
that is-
I know, I'm not.
That this is not, like, there is no avoiding it at this point, so we're going back to that, and if that one fails, we are talking
If
about.
that fails, we're talking about closing the library, if, make on this.
Right, and I want people to know that,
But
I just want full disclosure, I don't want this, I'm trying to pull a fast one.
This
I want full
project has
disclosure.
been, this
Yeah.
project has been in pipeline for quite some time and a lot of good work. And this town has voted in significant, this is the number one vote of all 9 communities. So we should.
Because I'm not being accused of like not supporting the project. I just want to make sure everyone is clear of what's happening.
Potential opportunity cost, you get A, you don't get B.
Just
Something
want
to say
that.
this about.
I just want to be clear.
Also, potentially we can get both.
Right? I just don't want people to be surprised. To say, hey, what's happening?
Again, looking at Norwell, they're gonna put both on. The general override passes, the debt exclusion fails, then their budget's out of balance again.
Yeah.
They have to get both of them, so. Yes,
Did you give us your opinion?
I'm agnostic about it. I think probably a debt exclusion would be the way to go. Just because you're not gonna be taxing to a profit, for lack of a better term, while we're getting into this.
Yeah.
But the timing of it is more your decision, that's a policy decision. Nancy, from an operational standpoint, you do it, it's there. I don't need it yet, but when I do need it, I can just start building that into my budget, not have to think about it going forward. I'm a little more of a gambler when it comes to things like that, but it's a policy. I would do it as a debt exclusion. But when you would do it, and that will way better paid than I am for this list.
Karen,
This is a really interesting conversation. I think that, what we're being asked is, should we, so there's a couple of questions. Should we put it on the ballot in May to authorize the town to do a debt exclusion? That's the timing. Should we do it in May? I think we should. I think Mr. Gilmore articulated it well, that, it's fresh, it's top of people's minds. They know we had a community that strongly supported this. Let's decide, I think it's overwhelming that we need to do a debt exclusion. I think that that's the way to do the financing. So let's go out and just tell people that's what we're gonna do and get their approval for that. And I think we should do that right away. And you know, we're not, it's gonna be, you know, the first dollar of this isn't gonna hit for what, 3 years, Superintendent? You know, but it gives us the authority to plan for how this is gonna impact us going forward with any decision that comes up.
Well, I mean, the first dollar will hit in 2 years, it won't hit in 26, it'll hit in 27.
Okay.
Because 26, they're absorbing it with the stabilization. It's just a hit in 27. And you know, $110 million budget is not going to be crippling, it'll be an increase that we necessarily don't need, but it's really not till 28, 29. That they would do their permanent financing, we would see the big increase.
Yeah. No, I definitely think it should be a debt exclusion for all the variables we talked about tonight. And off we go. We won't need a subsequent vote when we have the numbers, will we?
No, it just is.
Yeah, okay. Because that, I mean, if I'm a voter and I see this on the, you know, as it's written here on the ballot on 31st, I'm gonna go, well, how much is that gonna cost? And we don't have an answer to that.
Well,
I mean, we have, we have estimates.
What are the estimates are?
yeah,
Yeah.
we have estimates.
Yeah.
And it's based upon your current home value, it's based upon
Yeah. What's that?
actual cost may vary.
Yeah. That's where I'm at.
Good. Any other questions, comments? Wants to know this tonight? You guys want to,
We should move it.
Move to authorize the town clerk to include a debt exclusion question on May 31st, 2025 town election ballot for Situate's apportioned share of bonds issued by the South Shore Regional School District for the design, construction, and equipping of a new vocational technical high school.
Second.
You have to read as follows, you have to read the actual question.
Shall the town?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shall the town of Scituate be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2 so-called the amounts required to pay the town of Situate's apportioned share of the cost for bonds issued by the South Shore Regional Vocational Technical School District in order to pay the costs of designing, constructing, originally equipping and furnishing a new district high school and related athletic facilities, including the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto? Question.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Conley, seconded by Mr. Gilmore. Roll call.
Mr. Goodrich?
Yes.
Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore?
Aye.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
Unanimous, all in favor, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a birthday, Ronnie.
Please.
What's the occasion?
His birthday. He's 29 again. We got.
And I Jim made all of those.
Yeah.
Jim Nathan. It is
All
all
right. Bill, come on up.
Ah,
How are you?
good evening.
You have sweets if you need them.
Yes, you bring those?
No.
No?
Once we got to bring it.
Thank you.
Hello? Thank you very much.
That takes care of the school building.
We didn't want to give you the water. You didn't want to give you the water. Yeah. You don't want water? I do. I have water in the.
So Bill, I ran into a former colleague of yours. He's South America.
Ah,
She didn't get a hold of you to tell him?
I think so.
It's your assistant superintendent in, Monomoy.
Jane?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and
She's the principal.
yes, yes, yes.
Travels a lot now, she's retired.
Yes, yeah, we
Oh,
were
she's
in
the best.
Buenos Aires and then all through Patagonia. Yeah, we were together for like 18 days.
Yep.
Yeah, she's a great person.
Top shelf.
Yeah.
I'm mad, she texted me about it.
I think my husband managed to ferret out how we knew each other.
Yeah.
She's like, you know, dog.
My favorite.
Yeah,
Miss her.
she's great.
But see, she's, thank you.
My favorite, the little ones.
Oh.
I'm good, I have something.
I'll take one. Break the. You go.
They're so lucky. Yeah.
All right, how are you guys doing?
Good.
Glad we're not building a new school.
Tough. It's very factual.
I'm ready, whenever you are, yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us here tonight. I want to start by congratulating and thanking both Karens. I know this is your last year in the select board, and wherever Karen is up on the screen, thank you for all you've done. Both here when I was in your positions when I was a rookie 5 years ago. I've learned a lot from you. I appreciate all your time and effort. The job is very hard to do, and this town's great. So again, thank you both for your service, and I look forward to seeing you enjoying yourself stress-free a little bit. And
Yes.
yeah.
No
So-
one to talk anymore.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll stay involved. Thank you. So Dr. Rabb and I are here tonight to talk about the school budget for fiscal year 26. I just want to give a little bit of context of what brought us here. On January 27th, we had our first meeting from the school committee, since the public, published it up on our website, shared with the community. Came back a week later on February 3rd and had the public hearing with the community, revising and improving as we went with feedback from the school committee. And then yesterday, we went for the school committee for a vote and was unanimously approved by the school committee. Tonight we'll be here, then Thursday night will be in front of the advisory committee, their meeting, then all goes well, town meeting. And for folks out there in the community, to find this information, because I know it's a lot, pretty overwhelming, go to cit.org, scit.org. Presentations are there. Also, Dr. Rabb and I are always available to answer individual calls, specific calls. I think what we're proud of is the transparency and the level of detail in our budget, which at the same time makes it a little long, but it also, I think, allows people to look at things and take their time. And so when you do that, if you do have questions, and we've got a long time before it's a town meeting, so we'll be happy to answer your questions. And finally, we started a few years ago presenting what we call the Blue Book, which is a book in layman's terms, if you will, that explains all of this, that brings the numbers to life and kind of connects it to what our philosophy and vision is and kind of what we'll articulate verbally this evening. So I'll segue into next presentation with the strategic plan, which is our roadmap, which was developed a few years back, 5-year plan with full community involvement through focus groups, visionary groups, and it's just community members, students, staff, and we believe this is a strong plan. And I think you value when you pay money, so that's what we want to kind of make our connections to tonight. Those are the 3 strategic objectives. We'll get into a little more detail in the next slide. So we've all talked about this. I think we know the situation. It was an extremely tight year for all of us, and we're proud of this budget nevertheless because we think we can deliver. How many more years like this as the conversation will rise, things like that come up? Not many, obviously. So, but we'll take it 1 year at a time and be prepared to do that and what outcome we have known to us tonight. So, just on the teaching, learning, and leading. We've made a commitment, obviously, to our curriculum, which is core of what our teachers, our great teachers use to deliver their curriculum. We started a curriculum plan immediately the first or second year I got here. There wasn't one in place, which is basically a plan on, you know, how often you replace textbooks, supplies, materials. If you have no plan, typically what happens is things get outdated, they get forgotten, and when you do have to purchase things, they're usually in large caches of money all at once. So this is like a strategic way of outlining that. So each year we have a different curriculum highlighted. This year will be social studies, last year was math, and we're happy to report that we can contribute to that, commit to that, keep that commitment so nothing gets lost. It also includes professional development for staff. And summer training as well to make sure that the teachers are ready to deliver that. We're piloting, we always pilot these curriculums a year in advance, get feedback from staff, make sure we're getting the right thing. Also, we use Department of Elementary and Secondary Education as a benchmark for research-based and standards-based learning. The MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Supports, which is also a research-based term used by the Department of Elementary Education, which supports the whole child. What does that mean? That means we will start looking at, or have been looking at, but with training, or talk about the dashboard a little later. We have the ability to look at all in one-stop shop for the students' MCAS scores, their benchmarking scores, which are assessments done by the teachers, their attendance, their discipline, everything, which is extremely helpful to have at your fingertips. Otherwise, it takes a long time to gather information. And once you have that, you can talk about each child and really individualize their learning. So that's kind of the future of education, and we're kind of zoned in. We've had a nice relationship and grant for 3 years that's helped us through the Department of Elementary Education. Boston College has also contributed to that. So just kind of an outline. We had a pilot the first year. This year, Gates is fully implementing the MTSS, which is going very well. It's also in our strategic plan. And the dashboard is that one-stop shop for all data for our staff, students, families that we will invest in as well. And all these will have specific numbers and items as we go through to the more detail. So the next one's communication, community partnerships. I think communication is always a huge piece of something we want to improve on and do better at. So we're in the process now of developing a 5-year communications plan similar to a strategic plan, looking backwards on what you want to accomplish in 5 years and how can we best communicate to our communities with social media changing so quickly and keeping up with all the needs of our stakeholders. The next one is the collaboration with the town. Something we're very proud of, a relationship with Jim, Nancy, the whole team, all of you that, students on the financial, so the financial forecast. One of our celebrities that left the meetings also on there. And anyways, it's a great process, a great process that, that me coming in to 25 years in education, I hadn't seen the town use. And I just really, I think it's just a really collaborative way that towns can work together, school and town, and proactively help each other out. So I think that has been a really great relationship and has allowed us to make great financial decisions based on frugality. Next one's some sustained partnerships. Again, we've got, I'll talk a lot about grants because I think that's one of our keys to success here and why we're not in a situation of asking for more and more money. Got hundreds and thousands of dollars in grants. We created a position a few years back, actually during COVID, and the only position we created, and it's to be dissolved unless it made its money back. And so it's not only done that, but it's made us over $500,000. It's not just the money, it's the opportunity. So all that money is things like this Project Lead the Way, which is innovative career pathways that kids can now take. So if a kid wants to come in and go to the business finance route, you can take rigorous coursework in that and focus on business and finance, almost like a career path through college. And then the other one we're starting off with environmental and life sciences. And these end in a project, research-based project, again, similar to colleges, high stakes, and come out of there with current industries. We talked about AI a little bit, so we'll be getting some of that background and then be ready to prepare for those jobs for colleges, universities, for the military. And then Holly Hill Farm is someone that we've worked with for a long time, but put it up there because they're a great partner, is the best student. Posted research, both of those offer internships among many for our students and a strong internship program. So those are some great partnerships that we have among the district. Next. And then the finance, facilities, personnel, and technology. This is a real big investment for us this year. Facilities, again, we made that commitment since I was here 5 years ago, and Mr. Goodrich said to me, start pulling your weight with capital and maintenance, and we took that to heart, and it was true. We had capital projects at the time, I remember, that were approved, and the money was sitting there unused. And so we were able to put that in there, and again, even with the belt tightening we've done, that's kind of the term we've been using. This year, we were able to keep that. Hopefully, will be, and continue to use that money to make maintenance so that we won't be coming back for a new school or big major projects, all of which we know we're not able to handle at this point. So we're proud of that. And staff, 80% of our budget is staff. The most important part of our work in schools is people. It's a people business, and they're our most important assets, if you will. And so the good news is we're not cutting or laying anybody off, but we're also not hiring anybody. I think that was the message that was loud and clear, and I want to thank our teachers union, our staff, all our unions and staff to understand that and know that we have to run a great high quality education without any staff. We're able to do that, and we're proud of that. So that is there. Technology is the last one. I want to thank Mike Minicello and the town for their partnership. We hired a new technology director this year, built a new team, added a position. This year's budget, we only had a 3-person staff, given the entire district. We hired an additional person, and I think it's made a world of difference. They've done a kind of an audit, if you will, along with Mike's help, and we found that we've got a lot of work to do to tighten up our security. And as we know, everything with cybersecurity and firewall and things like that to protect yourself is ever changing and expensive. So we wanted to commit to that. Again, we've got some catching up to do. We've got some grants. The town helped us with one of those grants. I want to thank Jim and the team for that help. So you'll see some cybersecurity investments in here. Chromebook refresher in grade 5 to 9. You recall a few years back, we went 1-to-1 where every child gets a Chromebook. Every 5th grader and every 9th grader, you change them over as they become outdated. So again, a plan in place instead of having to wait when they all break and then come in here and asking for $2 million. We're also part of the fact that we took off we used to come in into capital and ask for $200,000, I believe. It was kind of a given every year for our technology. We've taken that off the capital because we did believe it was operational and not a capital expense. So we've taken that on and absorbed that in our operational. Next slide, please. And then okay, so that in terms over to Tom. I think as far as questions go, this is we'll go as quickly as you'll allow, but we'll also pause after each slide and just fire them out if you'd like to. Keep up.
Great, thank you, Mr. Tarkett. So as we put together any school budget, we start with enrollment, and then we look at revenue, and then we look at expenses. And so that's how I kind of put this presentation together. But this is high level. I rolled up a lot of the budget lines. All the detail is online. So the school committee had a 2-hour presentation last week. It's all online. Anybody can take a look at it. I'm happy to answer questions on any of it. But we begin with enrollment. So last year, our enrollment was 2745. This is right from the Department of Education, so anybody can go online and see this slide. And you look at the current year, it's 2744. So what we've seen is some shifts in grade levels. We had some more kindergartners come in this year. Different grade levels have different levels. Next year, Gates is seeing 20 to 30 more students overall as 5th grade goes to 6th grade. But all the principals are absorbing those changes. So we might see, teacher grade level move here and there, but at the end of the day, we're maintaining our current staff. One of the things we do every year is we look in the future. How far ahead can we look? Can we look 5 or 10 years ahead? And we hire the New England School Development Council to give us some projections. You may remember this when we looked at the elementary school building project. It was a big part of the projections. And what they're telling us is what we're seeing, which is that the projections are pretty flat with a slight increase over the next few years. But really, you can see here, the graph is pretty flat with a slight increase. when you look at 24, 25, because one of the questions I had is this accurate? You know, do they actually know what they're doing? Are they real when they make these projections?
It's an eye test too.
I apologize, yeah, so,
29.
I can give
29.
you printed copies. But for 24, 25, it's 2671 that does not include preschool. So the one thing NISBEC doesn't do is it doesn't include preschool. So if you add for this year, 2671 plus our 82 preschool students, they predicted 2,753 students this year. And as you just saw, we're at 2,744. That's pretty good in terms, you know, being off by 10 kids in the sense of a, 5 or 6 year projection tells me that the New England School Development Council, it knows what they're doing. And for next year, they're predicting 2,664, only 7 students less than we have now. So none of that is going to change the need or suggest that we need to do anything with our staffing. Moving forward down the road, we'll talk about it. But the big story for me for this budget is level enrollment next year with a slight increase over time. But as far as 1 year at a time, we maintain our current staff. So we're not looking to add staff. We are looking at kindergarten enrollment as a pressure point. Right now, we think we have enough teachers for kindergarten. We also are always looking at special education. So those are the 2 areas. If there's ever going to be any volatility in a school budget this early, those are the areas that we do have to look into. And then we'll talk a little bit later about special education, but I mentioned to the school committee, that can be a 6-figure volatility depending on a student here or there. We have built in some ability to handle that up until this year. One of the things you're going to notice this year with the belt tightening I'm talking about is that we don't have a lot of ability to handle huge shifts. And so that's, when you talk about this year, moving into next year, even into 27, we are making the commitment to maintain our staff. We made a commitment to curriculum development and social studies. We made a commitment to technology and a commitment to that $250,000 in maintenance. But that required us to belt tighten everywhere else and take out the ability to handle some of those shifts in special education. So again, I'm not losing any sleep yet, but it's one of those areas that we made those commitments and we're honoring those commitments. So that's where we're at with enrollment. The New England School Development Council, every school district I've ever worked for uses them to do predictions. So the first thing we look at is revenue, and our main source of revenue clearly is financial forecast. So I put the last few years, I'm very grateful for the generosity of the Financial Forecast Committee and all working together for the $48.3 million share for the schools. And so we built our budget beginning with that number, 48.3. But the one thing to remember is that there's also an additional $4 million of grants and revolving that support our budget. And I think sometimes that's lost in the conversation. And so we've wanted to be very transparent about that. And you'll see some of these same funding sources that Dr. Hickey just mentioned for us as well. So we also enjoy Title I that supports 2 middle school math specialists, as well as Title IIA, Title IV, and the IDEA grant, which supports special education tuitions, as well as some related services. Going from 25 to 26, we've seen some of those go down. And so those are variable from year to year that has nothing to do with the current political climate. These were numbers that were told to us last year. So I always budget those flat. We don't have the 26 numbers yet. So I budget them based on what 25 actually was. And then we just kind of move on from there. We did receive a little bit more money from Medco. They've already committed to that for 26. So I included that. And I kept our circuit breaker number flat. So you'll see later on, circuit breaker supports our special education tuitions. Even though our special education tuitions have gone up by $400,000, and you'll see that later on, that's with 3 fewer kids out of district. So those costs for all of those students has gone up, even though the number of students we have out of place has gone down. And that's not a trend that a lot of districts are seeing. Again, we were able to absorb that within this particular budget moving into 26. But the one thing I mentioned to the school committee, and I'll be very transparent about that here, is that if we see similar types of trending for next year in 27, I would probably look to the advisory board and to the select board to fund the special education reserve article. Because right now there is an existing special education reserve article. I don't think there's a whole lot of money in it, but that might be something in 27 or 28 that we would have to look to fund in order to handle some of the volatility. We've been able to handle it to date, but as we look at tighter and tighter budgets, 27, 28. That's something that I did mention to the school committee, so I'd be remiss to not mention here, to put some money into that reserve.
So I'm just funded, so I thought we did, Jim, did we fully fund that? No?
I don't, you created it, but I
Oh,
don't
we
think
didn't
there's-
fund it, that's
yeah.
right, that's right.
You,
It has money.
it has some money in it, I just don't know how much, so I don't expect to.
That's $128,177.63.
And where does that come from?
It was an initial funding of $100,000, and then the school department had excess funds, so they put $20,000 in it. And it earns interest, it stays there, but it's not a stabilization fund, it's a different fund that the school committee and the select board jointly control. And it can only be, I think, a certain percentage of their overall budget. So it used to be, it can only be about, I think, 2%, so like 900,000.
It's kind of capped at 900,000 to $1 million here, given our $50 million budget. The way it works is there's two sources of funding. One is the town meeting article free cash, or the school committee, as Ms. Holt just mentioned, can have funds at the end of the year and can support that. Again, $127,000, it would be for an unforeseen event. None of that is factored into any of this budget planning. I'm happy to hear it's there. But aid at a district tuition can be $200,000, $225,000. So again, I'm not fear mongering, I'm just being honest that if we are in a situation in 27 where things are tight, that's going to be an area where we might want to put some money, and then to use it, it requires a vote of both the school committee and the select board. So you're not giving up any control. It just doesn't require us to put it back to town. Both boards approve that, and it would be for a very specific purpose. I would come to you 18 months from now and say, you know, we have this student who came in completely out of district, brand new, unanticipated. I can't absorb it like I've been able to do in the past, and I would ask. That's a very long-winded way. Yeah, but that's the way it works. And I'm not a big fan of doom and gloom, but as we talk, I just think it's important to understand some of those other levers that we can pull if we have to in a tough situation. The other areas are revolving accounts, and this is where we collect money from different sources. So we have non-resident tuition, which is our students that attend our high school special education program that are from out of district, and that collects quite a bit of money. You can see in 22 and 23, 321,000, 340,000. In 25, I was very conservative because honestly, being brand new, I just didn't know where that money was going to go. But as we've seen the actuals in the 320s, I'm more confident moving that to 320. So we're using all available revenue. I don't want the town to ever think that we're only relying on the appropriation. We're trying for every available piece of revenue that we can. And so I made a pretty significant adjustment to FY26 so that people understand we're spending the money we get in. We're not leaving it. We're not. Early childhood receipts, 140 seems to be a number that works. FY24 was a little bit down, but I think we're fine at 140. Bus fees at 225. I challenged our AD for sports events receipts to go up by $5,000, which would be fine. Remember, we don't charge students at all for our sport program. So we did include the PAC. The PAC's starting to make a little bit of money. We've had some different people coming in. And so I started, again, to be transparent, I'm putting that as a revenue. The expense of that is the person who works for the PAC. So it's an offset. And then our bus fees.
How is bus lease revenue?
So it goes back and forth. So bus lease, the way it was reported on here, I haven't changed it, but it's also above the line in the financial forecast. So the way this whole, maybe you can help me out a little bit. So our appropriation is 48.3, but the actual budget number is going to be 48.3 now plus 304. Actually, I have to adjust that for the most recent financial forecast committee. So on the warrant, it's 48.3 plus 250. So it's a wash, kind of goes from one line to the other. Do I have that? Pretty good, okay.
I swear I don't get it, that's all right.
That's all right, well, so.
Never mind. Go
What,
ahead.
well,
Keep going.
it's in the expense as
Seems
well.
like an expense.
It's involved in the expenses too, so
There's a $250,000 line in expenses to offset it. So I'm showing it as revenue from the town because the town financial forecast above the line gives it to the schools. And then we spend it respectively.
Oh, okay, now I understand.
I sort of like
Yeah, so they see the
Sorry.
money coming in.
Okay.
This is like magic.
Right, I could take it off completely as both a revenue and an expense.
Right,
But
and it zeroes
the-
out.
You're good, at
If
least, it's good to see it.
But you see
I
it,
was gonna say,
and
it's gotta
really
show
what
up
it, you know what
somewhere.
it comes
Yeah.
down to?
Right,
We
okay.
get the bill. So.
Perspective.
So,
Okay.
the honest truth is, I get the bill, so I need to have the money coming in to pay, that's what it comes down to.
Thank you.
But, the really the reason for this slide is to show that as grateful as we are for the $48.3 million, there's another 4.2 that's contributed from grants and revolving accounts. And that is the total sum that we need to run the district. So let's look at expenses. Where are we at in terms of salaries and expenses? So this is the summary of the entire, 52 million and how it's broken out. I think, again, when I look at pie charts like this, for me, I'm looking at, is our money going toward instruction? Is our money going toward the students? And you can look at the percentage, and is it proportioned appropriately based on the population? So the high school, the middle school, 18% at the high school, 16% at Gates. Gates has fewer students than the high school. Wampatuck, Jenkins, Hathaway, and Cushing. The only thing that confounds this a little bit is that there are some sub-separate programs at Jenkins and Hathaway. So even though Hathaway's a little bit smaller enrollment-wise, there's a more expensive program there. So it sort of evens out. But for me, the piece of this that's the story is that our money's going to instruction. Our money is going to the kids, to the buildings, to instruction, primarily. And then as Mr. Burke had mentioned, we are 80-20 salaries and expenses. If you break it down, I always include out of district tuitions that 3.9, it was 3.5 last year. I mentioned the $400,000 increase. So 80% salaries, 13.4% expenses, and then the out of district tuitions are another 7.4% for the total amount. Which again is what we'd expect. I think Mr. Burkett, you had mentioned to me earlier, a couple of years ago, that salary number was a little higher, it was 83 or 84%. We do need to make sure we have enough expenses to run the district, so we're committed to that. Curriculum work we're doing, the maintenance work we're doing. I think that can't be lost. There's a lot of other districts that would eliminate those things in a tight budget. We've made a real commitment to keep them because we're seeing the results. We're seeing the results of keeping up the buildings, whether it's replacing a part for a boiler or something like that. We're doing that in the plan. And then regular ed and special ed. I don't hear a lot of talk in Scituate about this, but it's just a slide of interest. But including the out of district, it's 28.2 and 71.8. We're at about 19% special education students, which is competitive with surrounding towns, if not a little better. When you include the out of district tuition, that's what kind of jumps up to the 28. So, and I'm going fast, so slow me down if you need to. So salary and expense summary, this is by building. Again, just kind of shows where the numbers are. Again, what are we looking for here? We're looking to know that our money is going toward instruction. 7-figure numbers in general ed, special education teachers, our paraprofessionals. The one thing I will say is I can't talk much about salaries because we're negotiating with all 6 unions this year. And so we're right in the middle of negotiations right now. We've opened up negotiations with 3 out of the 6 unions already. And so there's funds embedded to give the school committee the room it needs to settle those contracts. But I can't speak to individual issues and how that might ultimately work out. It would compromise their ability to negotiate. The one thing I will say here is our special education numbers, especially the transportation at $535,000. That is extraordinary. If you look at surrounding towns, special education transportation, because we have our own vans. We've invested on our own vans. We have our own drivers. It is always cheaper to run your own program than to contract it out. And so as long as we can, and as long as we can hire drivers, I'm going to advocate for keeping our own program. And I think Dr. Hickey mentioned that earlier too, that whenever you can do it in-house, it's going to be cheaper. We're seeing that here. And in the 2 other districts I've worked in my life where I've been working with finance, they contracted out transportation and the numbers were astronomical. So it's a real testament to it. And then, OT, PT, speech, behavior, board certified behavior analysts and team leaders. Later, you'll see the breakdown on that. And we're well resourced in those service providers. Again, having them on staff is cheaper than contracting out those services. Because when you contract out those services, all you get is the hour you contract for. When you have somebody on staff, they have them all day. And so it's always less expensive to have them as staff members if you can do it. And you'll see later on a breakdown for all of these. Similarly, in central office, everything's here. I've kept most of these flat. When we talk about belt tightening, the areas that I belt tightened were in central office expenses and in the building expenses. So I kept curriculum strong, I kept maintenance strong, we kept technology strong. But where I had to do that belt tightening was the better part of $300,000 in expenses among the 6 buildings and central office to make this budget work and to maintain our current staff. And so to do that, we belt tightened all the way around. And the department heads were great about it. I will say, we asked them, be very, very granular. Tell me what you need. Some departments went up a little bit, some went down. They trust me. They know that they'll get what they need in any given year. But we were able to do that to make this work for the 52.5. So let's look at Cushing. It's an example of all 4 elementary schools. I'm happy to go into the details of any of this, but just for the sake of argument, really the slide here is to look at the actuals for 25 to the proposed for 26, and that FTE number is not changing. So at Cushing, it's 50.2, going from 25 to 26. And again, our money is going into our general education teachers, our special education teachers, and our paraprofessionals. We have made a commitment here in Scituate to not revealing anybody's individual salary on a public document. So obviously we do pay the principal, but we don't ever reveal those individual numbers. You'll notice at Cushing, the supplies went down, negative 2,879, and that's a piece of that belt tightening. You will see other buildings went up because there were needs in other buildings. But at the end of the day, when you add up the supply and expense lines for all 6 schools as well as central office, we're down $300,000. So again, running through the schools, I think the story here is that we have the staff we need to run the schools the way we want to run them. And so we're maintaining 52.1 this year, 52.1 next year. And that's really the story. So here, Hatherley is up $5,189 in supplies. They were under-resourced last year. Granted, Cushing and Hatherley, a year and a half, 2 years from now, are going to be merged into the one school, but we do have to maintain them for this time. Again, looking at Jenkins, again, they went up a little bit in terms of supplies, but same 57.6 FTEs from 25 to 26. They do house one of our special education programs, the GEMS program, so their special education numbers and para numbers are a little bit higher. And really, if you see any volatility in FTEs, that's where you're going to see it, in special education or in paras, because they're always tied to the student fund. So at Wampatuck, again, you'll see negative 3585 for supplies. And preschool is separate, so preschool is not included in this. You will notice from 24 to 25 in paras, 12.8 to 17.8 jump. That was actually a misclassification. When we look at the early childhood, you'll see it goes down. So it was just readjusting where people were in the budget. And here it is. Early childhood center went from 7.2 to 4.8 to reclassify to the building, just in terms of how they were classified, new person, new room. So I just do it a little bit differently. But that's our preschool program. At Gates, 91.4 to 91.4. Like I said, Mr. Beatty is absorbing another 25 or 30 kids next year. He is absorbing that right into his staff, which is a testament to the hard work they're going to do to make that happen. And at the high school, 100 even FTEs. And again, most of our money is going toward staff, where it should go. Their supplies are down significantly because we did have an opportunity to do some upgrades at the high school this year. We put a new floor in the cafeteria. We did a new floor in the vestibule. We through a grant with the town, we did LED lighting throughout the building. We were able to paint the building. So there's a lot of we did new basketball hoops and winches for basketball hoops. So we did a lot of little upgrades at the high school just to keep it going and not have a big capital item right now. So, but that wasn't sustainable forever. So that number did go down a little bit. And then in athletics, we're keeping that pretty flat. Scituate is awesome. We don't charge our students anything for athletic program. And we we maintain a strong athletic program.
Should that change?
Not in my opinion. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, we have to look at whether or not the students are paying for it. I think it was.
I mean, students pay for band, right? Don't they have to buy their own instrument?
They have to buy their instrument, but they don't pay a fee to join the band, I don't think anyway. It's one of those things, again, I'm gonna speak really freely, and you can take me on the table. But I think basically, when you do it, I've been in other districts where we charge, I have. And what happens is it makes it very hard on the coach-student relationship and the coach-player relationship, because when a parent pays $200 for a kid to play, they want to see them play. They want to make sure that there's equal playing time. They want to make sure that, you know, all of those things happen. And that's not realistic on a varsity sport a lot of times. So it has taken away a lot of the pressure and kind of even the playing field. But again,
Well, and I feel like we just got over that argument. We just, I think during COVID even, when we finally said that's it, no more charging for athletics, so.
Yeah, I think when I was hired 5 years ago, it was one of the major concerns I heard from pretty much consistently from everyone was all the fees that Scituate had. And we had a kindergarten fee at the time, if you recall, in sports, we still have the bus. Those were the three big ones that were, you know, really, you know, I refer to them as a tax because I think that's what it is. As a former parent of high school kids and now adult adults, that was the pet peeve I had living in Plymouth, where we had to pay for parking, we had to pay for sports, all of them paying for sports, and you know, so it was a big deal here in Scituate 5 years ago, and we addressed it head on with eliminating the kindergarten fees right off the bat, saving the taxpayers $550,000 a year in perpetuity. It was up by now, it's probably about 800,000. And then the next thing that was a big push for that we were able to get rid of was the athletic fees, which were about $212,000 at the time, which equate to about $300,000 now. So, and what I would say to that is our numbers of kids playing sports has gone up. You know, because if you get 2 or 3 kids, even people with good jobs and money, that's quite a hit. If you're charging a couple hundred a sport, you've got 2 kids and paying for that and parking and everything else. So, you know, I'm biased with that. I've lived it personally, but it also was strongly advocacy, excuse me, when I got here that all of those fees were supported to get rid of, and they were very happy. You can see some towns are bringing them back.
They are.
Instead of overrides, they're away.
Big time when they have to do an override, you have to make
Yeah.
a decision, do you do an override or do you pay people for it, the service?
Right.
So
That's why
Well, all I know
I'm
is
more
what
asking
happened.
if we.
I'm still
override it.
scratching my head the magic of eliminating the athletic fees, eliminating the bus fees, eliminating the kindergarten fees, and I'm like, how is this all happening?
Mr. Vignani still doesn't believe it.
I'm.
You tell me every meeting,
I'm-
how are you doing this? How are you
We
doing
still
this?
play a bus
Waiting
fee,
for
but
the other,
yeah.
other shoe.
We still play a bus, but anyway, thank
It
you.
was, yeah, you solved a lot of
There's gonna have to be
parent
some
issues.
Having said that, to your point, next year's a different year.
next year's.
And we
Yeah,
will
no.
get there when we get there, and we'll figure out what makes the most sense as we look. You know, I always look at the budget from every level that I can. But it starts with the strategic objectives, right? So our strategic objectives are all about curriculum, technology, maintaining the buildings. So that's where we've kept the money. You know, if you get to a point where we need to make other decisions, certainly we're all going to be in it together. So. So again, this is really talking about the people, not so much what they cost, you know, overall, all those people are an additional $65,000, but it's more, we are well resourced. 3 board certified behavior analysts in the district, this size is appropriate. And what that's saving us in contracted services is very hard to calculate, but they're working directly with our special education students, doing programs for those students. We have a full-time physical therapist, 3 occupational therapists on board. That supports all of the sub-separate programming that we have. And honestly, at the end of the day, it keeps people in district, keeps the kids in district, which is always going to be cheaper than an out-of-district placement. I mean, that's the story here, you know. You'll see going into this year, we did increase the out-of-district coordinator from 0.7 to 1. We have found that to be extraordinarily helpful because she's been involved with those kids, making sure those kids are not only taken care of, but she's also making decisions and recommendations with the special education director. Can we bring those kids back? Can we create the program here and keep them? Because we always want that. And this is the special education district expenses. Again, the story here is the additional $400,000 for private and collaborative tuition. Those are adjusted, based on actuals, and then for 25 and 26, pretty fewer students, but an extra $400,000. That's a trend a lot of districts are seeing. And like I said, I was able to squeeze it into this year's budget. Next year, if we see a similar kind of increase, we're going to look at spend for something else. And trust me, I don't cry wolf. People who know me know I just don't. But I'll tell you the truth and what I'm looking at a year from now or 2 years from now. Again, central administration salaries, same number, going from 25 to 26 in terms of people. And then this is the central administration expenses. I put this detail up there, and I apologize for the tiny numbers, but just to show the belt tightening. $141,000 just in this one line item. This is where we're belt tightening. I'm not belt tightening on the backs of curriculum. I'm not belt tightening on the backs of kids. We're belt tightening at central administration to make sure that we just keep it where it needs to be in curriculum, maintenance, and technology. Technology salaries. Technology. We have a new technology director this year. We did add the tech staff. Christopher Kuhn is named there this year as a network specialist. It's been extraordinary working closely with Mike on the town side. I think we've seen a lot of working together and a lot of great things coming out of technology. Tech expenses, one of the few department heads I said, you can spend a little bit more money. They had to. Modest, $28,000. The reason we were able to get away with it is because you might remember we did have the $400,000 switch article this year. E-rate is going to reimburse us $150,000 to $200,000 of that. I can use it to buy the next set of Chromebooks. And so this article was written so we had that flexibility. So we were able to have a modest increase in technology for 26. How sustainable that's going to be in 27 is a question we'll be talking about a year from now. I'm really hoping to avoid a capital article on technology. My opinion has always been technology is like electricity and gas and heat. We have those in here. It just has to be part of it. Again, curriculum expenses. I didn't put a difference, but it went down a little, 471 to 467. But I think it just shows our commitment to curriculum. And this is above and beyond the social studies textbook adoption. So this is to get everything going to do all of those strategic objectives we talked about in curriculum, the MTSS dashboard, and all of those things that we want to do to make sure that we can show the work that our teachers are doing for our students. That's a strong number. In addition, we have money for social studies, money adoption in the middle school and high school numbers. That's about $400,000 total for the social studies adoption. Strong commitment to curriculum.
So in the 471 back there was the math?
No, matter of fact, the math was in the 25 budget right now as part of the textbook line for high school and middle school math. Okay. So you don't see that detail there, but what I did is I basically took the money from the math textbook line and put it in the social studies textbook line. So this is above and beyond actually buying the textbooks. So buying the textbooks is the textbook adoption line in this middle school and high school budgets. Okay. This is actually everything that we do to make sure that it happens. So not only implementing the social studies curriculum and professional development, we need any new course the principal puts in the book. We have to do any curriculum work over the summer that's supported in the summer curriculum line. Any curriculum revisions, the 58,000, to not only kick off the new social studies curriculum over the summer, but continue the main math curriculum that we started this year. That's a multi-year project. We bought everything. We have all the materials. Now we have to implement it. And then for the supply line, all the software. And again, this could be in the technology budget technically, but I think it's a little more transparent to keep it in the curriculum budget. But all the software that we use to support the curriculum in the schools And then the top one, the contracted services, not only the evaluation management software for the teachers, but any professional development managing, all the benchmark testing that the students are doing. There's subscription costs to all of that.
I know a lot of them, but what's holistic student assessment and character strong manual? I mean, kids haven't been there yet, but.
Those are the pair, I'm not sure exactly what grade levels they do, the pair in the holistic
4 to
assessment.
4 to 12.
4 to 12.
That's the
I know the pair.
social emotional learning pair, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's pair. That's part, what's holistic HSA?
I think that's an umbrella term of pair, probably.
Oh,
it's
it's
the
all
same.
pair.
Probably all the
Got it,
same, yeah.
Yeah, I know pair.
And character strong, it's all part of the same kind of thing in terms of looking at social emotional learning.
Guys, it's all one. Okay, that's why I was like.
STAMP is a world language assessment that we give to assess our kids in world language.
So can I ask a curriculum question?
Sure.
Because we do spend a lot of money on curriculum, and I know that's a focus, which is great. And this mechanically all looks good to me, but then how do you know if it works? Like, let's take math for example.
Sure.
How do you know it works? Implementing curriculum. I'm
He's the
sitting
superintendent, I
here
got a lot
as
of
a-
answers.
I'm
Yeah, I
sitting here as
can.
a select board member, but I'm also
Sure.
frustrated as heck parent.
Of course.
So, like, tell me you're implementing curriculum and spending a lot of money on math curriculum. Then how do you know if it works?
Well, I think ultimately, I think you start working backwards, you start from student benchmarks. We have benchmarks, we have MCAS data, we have multiple assessments to see how that works. And it takes a little while, and that's why we've been saying, we just started this process a few years back, and we just started the math this year, and some people, including the school committee, has shared concern about mathematics, so we're looking into that. Part of this problem, I think, without having a curriculum is teachers were left to their own devices to do their own thing. So, for example, when we looked 5 years ago at our curriculum, they were done on Google Docs. Each teacher would have a different way of getting to the standard. What a curriculum does here is they get trained together, new teaching strategies introduced to professional development, and also there's common assessments. Now we can measure apples to apples. Those are all ways we can look internally, and the ultimate obviously is MCAS and graduation rates, things like that.
Is there an accountability component? Like, maybe it's not a curriculum. That's the problem. So you implement a new curriculum and there's still struggles. Is there an evaluation component
For our staff?
for the staff?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So our staff are evaluated, every staff member is evaluated. Including us.
Yeah. I'm staying in my lane. Yeah, I used to be a superintendent.
So you're implementing math curriculum, right?
Yes.
And you're saying this year, so when should a parent know that it's gonna get better?
Well, I think it should be better now. It should be better now. If it's not, that's an individual conversation with the principal about a teacher. I think all research will show the most influential impact on student learning is the teacher in their classroom. Right, so to have great teachers and to keep them more what we need to do. So I think it goes back to, how do you know the teachers implementing that curriculum? That's through the evaluation process. I will say there's one thing that we've flagged on and we're working on this summer, because we've had a bunch of new staff and new principals. I think I'm the most veteran in 5 years, including our central office staff. Maybe Mr. Dee's been here longer, that's it. Everyone else is not. So what we plan on doing, because this question has come up and it's a good one, how are we, assessing that things are being done in the classroom that we purchase and that we expect? And that's through the evaluation model. So we'll be having training on that in calibration. I think that's the other thing that's.
Yeah.
Evaluate staff.
I think with the student in the classroom, if I could just add one thing, and I will step out of my lane for a minute. We did learn a lot of lessons at the elementary level with recent implementations. And so my understanding, listening to what was presented at school committee, we learned a lot of lessons about progress monitoring every 2 weeks. So we're benchmarking 3 times a year, but then there's progress monitoring along the way. And that's when the teachers actually see the changes from 1 week to the next in student progress. And I think they learned a lot in the elementary level about how successful that is. And I know that that's part of what they're trying to bring into the math implementation. Just to throw that out.
And how much communication is there between some of the different schools? So for example, if a student, a third grader and a sixth grader were assigned the same book at the same time, how do we prevent that from happening again?
Third grade in the same school or different schools?
One at Gates, one at Wampatuck, may have been assigned the exact same. How do we make sure that the levels are being?
Well, we meet, it should not happen at all.
Yeah, I'd have to know more about that.
Right. The only way I can see that happening sometimes is individualized learning. If the students ahead of the reading level in third grade have access to if they're at a sixth grade reading level, they may get a book to use, but across the board, that shouldn't happen. For all students, yeah.
Doesn't it all show up in sixth grade? Well, now they've come from different elementary schools and now they're at Gates.
Correct. That's why we worked really hard. I guess the answer to Mr. Goodish's question is consistency across, all schools, and that's why with the curriculums we have, that shouldn't be happening at all.
Is this a new math curriculum? I'm having nightmare flashbacks to everyday math. No, everyday math. Back like
Usually
15 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
People, the parents, and I'm sorry to digress, the parents were going ballistic. And it was a completely different way of teaching math, so this doesn't sound like it's causing quite the uproar.
That's not the issue. So this is envisions math. I don't want to speak.
No.
It's more verbal. So what we're learning with math is that the kids that are struggling in math are the kids that are also struggling in literacy. Because what we're finding is that now it's more word problems, it's more explanation, it's more relevance. We all did. And so the student that struggles with literacy is also going to struggle with word problems.
Further down.
But the reason why we're doing it is for relevance. So we really want to make the math that they're doing relevant so that they're solving problems that make some sense.
Right.
And so you have to know how to read in order to interpret that into a math problem. That's the challenge, I would say.
I would argue that's the elementary, I'm happy to discuss offline. That's the elementary challenge. Once they're middle school, it's not the reading capacity. It's beyond that.
With math.
What the middle school parents are dealing with right now, but we can take that off.
That'd be great. I know we do have a do math degree, so she's been trying to tell.
So
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just want to follow up on this because I think it's important. Math is a focus. Every time we do the other thing we're working on too is to go with this. Just we don't want it to sound like we're just purchasing books and then that's all.
Right.
It's a curriculum plan that includes the evaluation, the follow-up, the training, and the assessments. Are we improving? Are our kids improving their learning? So that's all part of the package and working on. In fact, today we did something new to the district this year is a mid-year data review on all our subjects with our principals and our coordinators. So this afternoon I was sitting with the elementary principals and the elementary English and STEM coordinators, and they shared all the mid-year benchmarking from the beginning of the year for each grade. We rolled up our sleeves and went right through it. And it was the first time we had done that mid-year, which is smart instead of waiting at the end of the year, right? I think it's common sense, but it was very powerful because part of that conversation was both the coordinators had their recommendations for improvement based on what they saw. And the principals now had to add to that, what are we going to do about it? So each school was a little different, obviously. One school might have a weakness in third grade in math. One school might be fourth grade. So right away, we're making action steps. And I asked Mr. Lynch, our assistant superintendent, was in this. Oh, how long will we have to come up with these instances? By the end of vacation. We're not waiting. We need action steps now to address the kids that are struggling. So I think some of those things, looking at more real-time data, not relying on MCAS the year after and things like that, will help us with these new curriculums to improve our student learning, to help kids where they are now, so that parents don't get frustrated, like we've heard some of that. So we're working on it here. Thank you.
But the Wampatuck scores were easily the best out of it. It is the best.
No comment.
Through.
All right. Commercial's over.
Yeah.
all right.
We love
So the last slide is our transportation. And I think, again, it's just to embed some funding so that we can successfully negotiate with the drivers. but because we have our own, and I do need to adjust the 304, both in revenue and expense, but because we have our own transportation and the buses right now, we're in year 3 of our 5-year lease, it's staying pretty stable. So transportation is not the story here where it is in a lot of other districts. It will become the story if I can't find drivers, but right now,
Or if you try to offer it for free, it'll become the story.
well, because, there's
Find $1
certainly
million.
there's people who are not paying for it or paying for it. It's the only thing left. Mr. Burkhead and I have different opinions on this, so I'm gonna keep it
On the feet.
on the feet.
Well, it's not because you guys are joking. All right.
So that's it. So let me stop sharing and then we can certainly have a conversation.
Yes, good, Karen's back. I'll let other folks go first.
I think she's chomping at the bit there.
I've been here the whole time. I just didn't know if it screwed up the video if I was on video.
All right, did you have a question?
I have a few comments and a couple questions. So first comment is I really want to thank the school department for being so such a good partner in the financial forecasting. We're in some choppy waters right now, and to know that we can work together is really it's going to make all the difference. So we appreciate that. All right, this is sort of a random thing. So probably 5 years ago, when we looked at population predictions, they were all going down. And the numbers today say we're going to go. So what did I miss in the translation there?
I think a lot of what happened was our kindergarten numbers went up more than they predicted. So the predictions were showing us going down. We went down a little back then, 5 or 10 years ago, and then it kind of evened off. And so now we're seeing the reality of it is it evened off.
Okay.
And so that's why we haven't had to ask.
Well, Karen, hold on. This is where I wanted to go.
Okay.
I don't mean to be. So that was the most amazing slide. And this is what keeps me up at night. So we're projecting for 2035 under 3,000 students. That is 9% less than we've had for decades. That's not an 11% increase. It's a 9% decrease. We had 3,243 students in 2005. We had 3,220 in 2012. We had over 3,250. We're talking an entire Hatherley school for 35 years. We're missing Hatherley. That means we're talking over 200 students still. So even 10 years from now, we're still 276 students fewer than we had at the turn of the century. And that's what's keeping me up, is that so we have 276 fewer students after 30 years. And are not only our costs, not only our full-time employees, but it frightens me. To me, it seems unsustainable to have that many fewer students. But yes, I see that the trend is up, but now that we've pinpointed, we're still going to be that fewer down. How in the world can we sustain the numbers?
It's hard to compare from 30 years ago. I will say, I was an educator.
Oh, we're 15 years ago.
Well, 30. I'll 30.
We'll do 10.
I started my career at 31 years ago. So, but I think the issue is the needs of students are so drastically different now. And I know that sounds pie in the sky, but it's just true. The expectations of parents, the expectations of class size, the expectations of what a teacher is doing in the classroom for those students is just so different right now in terms of the related staff. OT, PT, BCBA didn't exist 31 years ago, or if it did, it was a contract services half a day. Those are the kinds of things that we've had to add to accommodate the needs of our special education students, but also the variety of programming that we have at the high school, the variety of programming we have at the middle school, to maintain all of that. That didn't exist 30 years ago. And I'm not trying to be crass.
I mean.
Yeah.
It is the heart, it's what I mean, again, it's, or Gates and whatnot, it's the people, right? That's what we're, she's the best. They're, having the right people are there, but again, we're talking to, and technology and programs, you have 276 fewer kids. You should have fewer programs. That's like, I'm just saying this is we're gonna go into choppy waters, right? We're talking about an override already for this year. We're gonna be talking about one for next year. And these questions are gonna be asked, so what's going on here?
Andrew, you're talking about class size. My opinion, class sizes were beyond. I took my child out of such schools in fourth grade because the class sizes were just beyond the ability, I thought, of a teacher to teach 30 fifth graders. And it was for the it was a blip, but it was hurtful for those of us who were in that blip. And so to have 300 less kids across the entire school district is not, I don't think it's as bad as it sounds. I do understand what you're saying, but I also am sympathetic to that expectations are completely different in terms of what we think the school should be doing. I mean, if you ever said the words in the olden days, emotional, social, people look at you like you're a crazy person. But it's an expectation now. So I hear what you're saying, but we may have to bite the bullet sometime, and maybe class sizes are going to have to get bigger. And, you know, people will either decide they're willing to do it, put up with it, or whatever you want to call it, but it's, class sizes 15 years ago were beyond.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be in the union contract too? Last time.
No, there's guidelines, but.
Guidelines,
not-
yeah.
no. And we have committed philosophically that parents have been very vocal about this, school committee. Is class keeping, the elementary level, keeping class sizes relatively small.
Well, that's where it
So-
really, really matters.
It's read, write,
Rubber hits the
social,
road.
oh,
Yeah,
100%.
kindergarten teacher this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, those classes. Just
And
three
of course
and
there
half.
are-
There's
25,
three and
26.
half, really, three kindergarten.
With, well, when Jenkins first opened, we had, I think, the number got to be 535 in that building. I don't know if people can even imagine it, but 535 kids in that building. And, you know, once the kids get into high school especially, there are other options that are, you know, affordable. They're not, you know, we're not talking about Milton Academy, but, you know, there are some other options. But in the elementary schools, that's where it really, really matters. And I remember being told at one point that Christopher had fine motor skill issue in kindergarten. So I said, so what? What are you gonna do? Nothing. That turns out he writes really teeny tiny. And he's fine. But, you know, when you say that to a parent and then you can't give the parent the reassurance that you've got the staff to help, the occupational therapists or whatever you need. So, anyway, I hear what you're saying, but
Yeah, no, it's,
what are our expectations of our educational system?
yeah, it's that full story, right? And it's right. And people have to know that, you know, where we've been, where we're going, it's because we're gonna have grants and other things that are unknown, for other costs that are unknown. I just want to make sure people are clear about what we're asking, because we've asked them for a lot. And if we are gonna, you know, just make sure we're not adding, if we don't need to add, but if we have to take away, what are we gonna take away?
I would agree with you, that's our job.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do. I think, I like what Karen said. You can talk student count, but you also need to talk about the teaching today versus the kind of teaching 30 years ago. Really different. And I'm the last one that can consult on that. But I see it just in talking to the kids and see what they do. It's a very different world today than it was 30 years ago, many ways. So you kind of have to look at both.
I'll go 10 years ago, we're still over 2,000. I mean, 10 years ago, it's not a lot, I mean, let's be honest. 10 years ago, we're not talking a lifetime. We're over 3,000, which we're still projecting. So in a 20-year span, we have 0 growth. I'm not saying we're trying to get rid of 50 people. I'm just saying, if there's ever a consideration of do we need to add someone or not, like that has to be a real other avenues because it's getting really tight.
I can commit to that, because every time we talk to Mr. Burkett, the first question is, who can we move around? Who can we realign? You're always, that's always the first question. And the only 2 areas that will be seriously considered, if anything needs to change, is special education or kindergarten, right? Because those are the volatile areas. Everything else, Mr. Burkett is clear. You're gonna move people around, you have to do what you need to do. So I mean, I certainly would, absolutely.
I think we're committed to that. So I think if we're not adding people for the sake of adding it, I think there's not a ton of fat here as we found this year. So it's, I look at it like a carpool. If we take it in 10 people in Boston and then you're down to 7, still pay for the gas and drive the vehicle. Those kids are spread out, mind you. If they were all in one class, you could get rid of one teacher. But over a district like this, because we do look at those numbers. I do agree with you. It was across the state, across the country. The last 5 years, there's been a decline in enrollment. So we tracked that for the last 3 years too. Here, because we're like, okay, where are the kids going? Are they going to private schools or COVID? And it was just more like kids were bigger classes were graduating, smaller classes were coming in, kids were moving, and now we've got a little change in that. We've got some bigger kindergarten sizes, but the projection is not enough to kind of get back to what you're saying.
I didn't want the confusion, and Karen, I'm sorry to jump into yours was, oh, look, our numbers are going way up. It's like, no, our numbers are still, we're still down. So that was more my point, that I don't want people to say, oh, geez, we got tons more kids. They're like, oh no, actually, we're still pretty low.
Oh,
okay. I didn't want that confusion out there. So I'm sorry, Karen.
Principals have been challenged. Keep it.
No, the question I asked is because 5 years ago, we were looking at a significant decline. And so it's just so interesting to me how the projections, I mean, that's what we do. But I just want to, I have two more comments, but I want to finish this conversation our board's responsibility is to partner with the schools to ensure that the decisions made by the school committee and the school administration are in the best interest of the students of the town of Scituate. They get a split of our shared resources. And so our job is to make sure that that we're confident that the decisions that they're making are giving the town the operational side of finances that we need. So I'm not in any way, shape, and form. Neither are any of us elected to make the decisions about curriculum and the choices and the things that the resources they're applying with the funds available. But our job together is to make sure we're taking all of the town's collective resources and applying them in the most efficient way. And I think that's to Mr. Goodrich's point is if you look at just straight data, you're like, well, holy cannoli, what's going on here? So we're right to ask those questions. Thank you for answering them. We're all going to be in choppy water for the next couple of years. There's no question. So the more we can partner on this stuff and make sure that we are adequately providing for the education of our kids and that their success is demonstrated, I don't think our board's going to have any question that, okay, that's our priority in our community, right? And I think it's been supported over and over again. But we're all going to have to look at It's not, I love when people come to us and say, I have this great idea and it's going to cost just this little, this amount of money. We're like, well, that's great, but we have 14 other things we have to spend money on. So I think that to me is the point is your job is to focus on schools. Our job is to look at the whole of the whole district and the whole community. And there's a lot, and we're doing a lot of hand wringing on that. But I'll go back to my other question, which were number three was, I am thrilled about the commitment to maintenance to our facilities, because that was when I started a gazillion years ago, that was the slush fund. When something else needed to be funded, you took it from maintenance. And we heard that loud and clear in the community, not a good plan. So I really applaud you on that. And I have to, because I'm an editor, I have to say, was there a debate on whether buses had 3 S's or 2 S's on your slideshow? But I had to just say that.
I actually it's BUSSES or BUSES?
They're both correct, so
I
I just
know.
wanted to make
Did
sure
I put
you
them both
repeated
down?
that.
I looked it up once in the dictionary and they were both correct. I probably used them interchangeably in the
The second two are silent.
I just wanted to make sure that our school department debated that question.
I have. I don't know what
It will be
Thank
fixed
you.
for town meeting.
That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Jamie?
I'm fine.
I wanted to echo the thank you for both, I mean, the transparency has been, it's night and day from where we used to be years and years ago. So that's amazing. The maintenance, it's fabulous. I thank you. And again, I tell you, my concerns is what keeps me up at night, not how we're gonna, pay for it all. So I thank you for taking it in and being a great partner, because you guys really have been. The whole team's been a great partnership. It's just great.
Thank you for sharing, Nick.
Yeah.
My son's got home.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Joe. Good night.
Where to next? Advisory committee?
Thursday.
We're on the circuit.
All right, we're gonna take
I'm gonna miss being here, but I'm seeing you.
2-minute,
Oh, I had to.
3-minute recess.
Okay, for the record, I went off video because I thought it would I was screwing up the display, just,
You're good.
Well, there we go.
All right.
bylaws, yay.
Yes, by Nancy Holt. Here she is. Review warrant article language. We're back in session, by the way. It's 9:41.
Sorry, someone's knocking.
Huh?
Someone's
On the
knocking.
door.
I got it.
Someone get locked out.
That one in the back.
Somebody's dying to talk about bylaws.
Mr.
I think maybe this
Clark,
is why.
on the grain layers renewals.
Oh, that's good.
Grain layers renewals.
What page?
Telco, it is.
Open it. Yep, was bang on the top. It was Bill, he forgot his coat.
Move to approve the renewal of the drain layers license for Calco Construction Corp., Laminar Construction DBA Costello Contracting, and D'Alessandro Corporation.
Moved by Ms. Any questions or
Second.
concerns? Everything is there.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Conley, second by Mr. Gilmore. Roll call vote.
Mr. Goodrich,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Aye.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Thank you, unanimous, all in favor. Did you do the 20Ds?
No, and we haven't done the,
We could do the.
It's right above your,
we can do 20 days.
it's right above your, drain layers.
Oh. Move that the select board approve the following employees to work for both the Scituate School Department and the Scituate Recreation Department. Cheryl Fraser and William Johnston.
Second.
Parentheses.
Moved. Ms. Conley, second by Ms. Harrison. Roll call vote.
Mr. Goodrich,
Yes.
Ms. Harrison.
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore,
Aye.
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Thank you, unanimous, all in favor.
All right. Back to review warrant article language for bylaw for abandoned property.
So the bylaw that the board, like that Jim had crafted, we sent it to Brian, who's on Zoom, town council. He provided further edits, which are just accepted into the document, and then he had comments, which you have. The red comments are the comments from the bylaw review committee on their first reading. It was, nothing was, out of line. There were just a few things that they thought were either not well defined or like in the definitions, rather than just or, it should be and, things like that.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, I want to, this is, they asked a question, the biggest one asked once about the 20 mile, which was consistent, and
So the
essentially-
definition for vacant buildings.
Right, I mean, the definition of vacant building is really abandoned building, same thing. So,
Right, well, we could just clarify.
Just say abandoned slash vacant building,
Right.
I think it takes care of that. They asked about the 20 miles, the 20 miles came from another bylaw. That the person responsible for maintaining the property has to be within 20 miles. If you wanna tie it to something, police and firefighters are required to live 15 miles, that's the non-civil service distance from the border, so we could tie it to that, it really doesn't matter, just the point is that if something happens with the building, we want someone to be close enough to actually get there, right, to fix it.
Right, that makes sense, I think.
So I've made those edits in the current draft. In the first definition, the bylaw review committee was just a little concerned. They gave the example that you have a parent that has died, you are in the process of selling your home to live in the parent's home, the house is being taken care of, but it might take you 6-7 months to do that. Should you have to register it? If you're taking care of the property, and just because it's not being occupied, why is it a problem? Why should anyone care? So their recommendation was not for it to be one, for 1 and 2 to be or, it should be not legally occupied and showing visible signs.
right.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that was the spirit of the
Yeah, that's fine.
law.
Yeah.
So we all like, and,
Yes.
does that make sense?
And.
Ms. Canfield?
Yeah, I mean, that was, I attended that meeting and yeah, that was sort of, Nancy explained it perfectly. It's sort of, it's like, okay, so my house is vacant right now because I'm away for a little bit. And
We're all going over there to have later.
I
Yeah.
know, but I got people picking up trash. It's being maintained, but it's technically vacant, right?
Right.
And we have a lot of people,
I've already insured.
neighbors and summer residents and all that. We're not talking about that. So we just need to make sure that this is clear that that's something we're talking about. We're talking about, a situation where there is, either a public health or a, just as it said, just showing signs of visible, substantial physical distress, whatever that means.
That's where the word and comes in.
Yeah, I thought that was a good
It
idea.
completely clarifies it.
Perfect.
The
But you
addition
need
of
to
the
take the word, you
and.
can take the word either out as well. It should say any building that is,
Is,
Yeah.
1, not legally, 2, and 2, showing signs.
And.
correct,
Take the word either out.
that would be better.
Okay.
Or either.
What else?
The other item that was raised, the last item raised by the bylaw review committee was in the violations and penalties. There was some concern about the level of fine, whether it should be weekly versus daily.
We're too tough to do it daily. You'd rather do, I guess.
What
How much
was it
teeth?
now? What was it?
There is nothing now.
There was nothing.
We put in daily at,
Do we have any other fines in the daily, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And it just says
All
you're
sorts
liable,
of
it doesn't say
building
that
fines.
that we have to actually pose it, it says that we liable to fine $50 a day.
it's like any of our water fees, sprinkle water every day, you gotta you find it.
Attorney Bertram is raising his hand.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you shouldn't be able to.
There he is.
Wait, Brian, you have to unmute yourself.
You're muted, Brian.
There we go. I think Jim actually beat me to the point. Just because we have it as a daily fine doesn't mean we actually have to assess it each day there is a violation. As a matter of fact, since it's a local bylaw, it's going to end up being like a 21D ticket where it may be impractical to have somebody go out there every day. But I do, a lot of times we put these things on the books that way because if we have a really problematic property, we sort of have a heavy tool we can use in the event we need it, but that doesn't mean we have to do it. So that's my 2 cents to help you out.
I would
And
agree
the-
on that.
The
with
example
other
is, Andrew brought up, we had the person who was watering, and they could find $100 a day for 30 days. And they didn't care, so now it's $300 a day.
Probably still in here.
I think daily is the way to stay.
Yeah, and again, we don't have to issue the fine, but we can.
The only other items here are town council, just disappeared, but will come back, is notations, and if there's any of those that you wish to incorporate into the document.
So I guess I'll ask council, is there any that you feel strongly that we should?
I might have to go back and look at them at this point. I'm here for the executive session. I didn't realize I was on for this. No, that's okay. That's okay. Give
We
me 1 sec.
appreciate the suit, though.
Okay. It's on like the second page, like where he has made comments. I'll just try to incorporate them as much as possible.
I would be comfortable with that.
Okay, I took all his
Yeah.
edits, but with the comments, I just wanted you to have an opportunity to see if there was anything that you didn't want to incorporate.
I don't know that I feel super strong about any of them. I mean, typically, if I feel strong about something, I'll actually edit it in the red line. Whereas if I'm just giving a comment, it's usually something that's more of a decision for you to figure out if it suits your needs. So I would be comfortable with any direction you want to go on the comments, and certainly with Nancy attempting to incorporate them. She oftentimes does better work than I do. So
Some of them were incorporated.
Yeah.
So I think
Okay.
As I'm reading them, it looks like you said,
Yeah.
or their designee.
they
That
may
was
have made an edit and then put the comment next to it.
Right,
I just
right.
didn't delete his comments.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
They seem to be, the majority of them were incorporated.
Okay, so I'll just delete the comments,
Adopt them.
incorporate
Yeah.
what we just went over.
Yeah.
And bylaw review is going back on the 20th.
That's what we pay for.
So we don't have, that's all we have to do, right? We're
That's all we
ready
have
to
to do.
done and done.
Yeah, we don't need to.
Vote, no.
We vote incorporating those changes?
I don't think so.
I don't think.
No.
Bylaw review still has to give you their recommendation,
Perfect.
Okay.
so.
All right. I have now we're on other business. Where's the section? Can't speak anymore. Almost 10 o'clock at night. Liaison reports. I have none as of yet.
I have none because I would just be repeating myself on the Irish Heritage and stuff.
Karen's been away.
I have, stuff, but it's all right.
We can all review again. Correspondence. There's
all have a
a
copy?
Reader's Digest
Yeah,
version.
you have copies.
Wait, I didn't tell you one thing.
Oh,
Sure.
I just want to reiterate, Sucy-en-Brie is hosting our sister city in France. There are 16 high school students coming over in July, and they're still looking for host families. So that's a really important thing. So I just want, and the second is the Scituate Chamber today had their inaugural meeting of the new board, which is a huge changeover. 5 new members have joined the board, and it's sort of the new era of the chamber has been launched today.
Great.
So correspondence,
Yes.
they're in your package.
Yes.
There is a Sucy-en-Brie letter from the mayor of Sucy-en-Brie. You should pay attention to that. Wishing us a happy new year. There is a letter in there about the Attorney General, Kathy Gardner. The warrant articles 10, 11, and 12 from our special town meeting were accepted with notes on Article 12 about fingerprinting dynamics.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You've got,
Lines with mass law.
you've got a
It's
private,
a summary.
you've got a private letter from Russell and Gina Clark, abutters to the South River Marina, sharing their concerns with the developments there. You've got a explanation letter addressed to Nancy Holt from Emergency Management Agency, Massachusetts, explaining why they're not paying us for, some of our, the third cliff, and the fact that because we can't get their end, the state's end of the world to get the permits done, they're threatening not to pay us. I'm aware, after talking with Mr. Boudreau, that we've already sent a letter to the governor.
We've sent a letter to the governor asking for a meeting on that, yeah.
For a meeting on that, and we've yet to get a response. So I would encourage this board to reach out to our senator and our state representative to encourage them to help the governor help us out here. That's we gotta do that. Then you've got another letter, notice of intent to Hadley School to build the standard letter about wetlands protection bylaw filing. I didn't see this one, so I didn't read this. This is to Andrew. Both from the U.S. Department of the Interior, bolstering ecosystems against coastal harm. Enacted, explains the Beach Act.
I'll review that.
Yeah. That's all I have. I will tell you, I'm leaving on February 20th that evening to go to Tel Aviv for the week
Nice.
with our state representative.
Oh.
Nice.
Gonna visit the Knesset, we're gonna go see the Red Sea, and then go up to the northern border of.
Don't get kidnapped. Jeez.
But I'm looking forward to it, and if there's any way we could, I could find the right people to talk about another city situation with Tel Aviv, it just runs through my head. Little cross culture there.
Love it.
Great.
Meeting minutes.
Move to accept select board meeting minutes for January 21st, 2025.
Conley, seconded by
Second.
Harrison, roll call.
Mr. Goodrich.
Yes.
Ms. Harrison.
Yes.
Mr. Gilmore.
Aye.
Ms. Conley.
Yes.
Ms. Campbell.
Abstain.
Oh, yes, you weren't there. Correct. Thank you.
You
Say this. All right, we're gonna go into executive session, so let me say this. Animal control case, the chair declares that the select board move into executive session pursuant to purpose 3 of the open meeting law to consider litigation strategy with respect to the town of Scituate, the outward litigation animal control case. Can I further move?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do this?
Yeah.
Further move, shellfish, the chair declared that the select board move into executive session pursuant to purpose 3 of the open meeting law to discuss strategy with respect to litigation. And I declare that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the initiating position of the select board in connection with this matter, shellfish aquaculture. Move that the select board move into executive session pursuant to purpose 3 of the open meeting law to consider litigation strategy with respect to the town of Scituate, the appropriate litigation, and that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the town's litigation position and the control case. The board will not reconvene in open session, and further move that the select board go into executive session pursuant to purpose 3 of the open meeting law to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, and that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiated position of the select board in connection with this matter. The board will not reconvene in open session. Shellfish aquaculture. This requires a roll call vote.
also second.
Move. Seconded by me, seconded by Mr. Gilmore. Roll call votes.
You need a roll call.
Chair.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Mr. Goodrich.
Aye.
Ms. Harrison.
Aye.
Mr. Gilmore.
Aye.
Ms. Conley.
Aye.
Ms. Campbell.
Aye.